Hello, everyone. This is Darcinovia here, and we have a surprise guest, Connor Gillis. Introduce yourself.
Yo, I'm Connor Gillis. I'm everyone's favorite revisionist, Marxist Leninist queen, hate dogmatism, love the multipolar movement, love dunking on people who don't know what they're talking about, and love informing everyone and being as subjective as possible and standing in solidarity with my comrades. That's me.
I I completely agree with that. Now, to start this off, me and Connor had a discussion before the stream started about the ultra question. I think I don't even know what better way of calling it, because for the past 6 months, though, I've been seeing the word ultra being abused, and to the point where it means as much as Nazi these days. I mean, if
Yeah.
everyone's an ultra, then nobody's an ultra.
Right, exactly. And anyone who's familiar with my work knows that I've certainly used the word ultra, though I've stopped using it as much as of late for this very reason. And I feel like now every time I use the term, I have to really clarify what I mean before I can continue using it, because of it's just hyperbole now. It's lost all meaning. Like, everyone's a Nazi, everyone's an ultra, everyone I don't like is an ultra. Everyone who's not Marxist Leninist is an ultra. That's not how it fucking works.
Well, even other Marxist Leninists are accused of being ultras by these people, and it's ridiculous. And I'm just gonna say it. I blame Caleb Maupin completely for this. He enabled this to the point where there is no good faith discussion. Honestly, when there's a
Right.
disagreement, you just resort to insults or calling someone an ultra. It's like what? It's like there is no discussion to be had.
Right. And, we're Marxists. At least most of us are. And I think even if we're not, we want to come to a truth. That's sort of what we're all about. And when it comes to using the word ultra, short for ultra leftist, it's like, what? Where did this word come from? What did it mean in its original intent? And how is it being used now? And why has it lost this meaning? And where the hell do we go from here?
Because I never heard I knew what ultra left was, but I never heard it being abused until Caleb Maupin, started using it, on every, leftist tendency that he disagrees with.
Right. And, ultra is just like, basically, if we want to be more specific, it's just shooting left, right? It's everyone whose ideas are a bit more, if you're on the left and someone has ideas that are more radical for you, the Marxist Leninist crowd will tend to turn towards what Caleb does and calls them ultra leftist, completely misunderstanding what the original intent of the word was and what ultra leftists actually like, because who gives meaning to the words? It's us as people who use it. And so now that it's lost all meaning, it's like, is this term even useful anymore? you know
You want an example of a real ultra leftist? Black Hammer.
right. um it has that wrecking quality to it. It has an individualist quality to it. It has a quality to it to where they say, we have a correct idea for the future. We're not going to adapt to the masses. The masses are going to adapt to us, and we are going to lead it. And it's almost like a. Do you know who Blanky is? He was the.
I
Yeah,
don't know enough about him.
he was like a conspirator. Like, the Blankists were like conspiratorial communists, right? They believed in like an ultra circle, like conspiracy at the top of society that would overthrow it. Like, they didn't believe in mass politics.
That was so funny.
I love Specky V. Specky V always has the funniest comments.
Yeah, well, I think they would have rooted for the Empire because the Ewoks were ultras.
Yeah, the Ewoks ultra anarchists. God, they're just anarchists. They don't know anything. They're uncivilized way. We have to bring our civilized Eurocentrism to them in order to enlighten them on our correct dialectical ivory towers. Y'all.
Well,
Oh,
I think the issue I have, at least with these people that use the word ultra, it's like just advocating like reading the wretches of the earth is, which in my opinion, I don't think any Marxist, you know, you know, should call themselves a Marxist, a serious Marxist Leninist, if they don't actually read, you know, the wretched of the earth, because it's an important part of Marxist Leninist history. Like it
well, of course
influenced the Black
it is.
Panthers.
If we don't understand the wretched of the earth, and we don't understand Pantherism, and we don't understand the praxis that was born out of this, and specifically decolonization and national liberation, that's where these ideas came from. And they came from people that were not the classical heads of Marxism. They didn't come from, Asia or Europe. It was a whole new perspective on things based in the sensibilities and understanding of their own communities. And it was way more radical and it was way more correct. And if it hadn't have been for COINTELPRO, it would have kept on and probably would have succeeded. It was much more. They had a much more correct line than the CPUSA did that back then, and I'm a CPUSA member.
Well, don't take this the wrong way, but I honestly believe the Black Panthers were the only party that actually progressed far, to a far enough where the U.S. government was scared of them.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. They are the Pantherism is the most advanced. Example of Marxism Leninism in the North American context. Full stop.
Yeah,
and if it hadn't have been for COINTELPRO, which we were not as well versed in back then, and now we are, so we won't make that same mistake again. But I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that the only reason they were targeted so hard is because they would have succeeded. That's the thing. They were doing everything right, except for the OPSEC just wasn't at that standard, unfortunately.
Well, I just don't understand, the supposed Marxist Leninists. I'm just why they would disregard a huge part of their history, because the Black Panther Party is a huge part of American Leninism. Why would you disregard that?
Because people have this tie-up, right? They have this tie-up about following the party no matter what. And they took this example, or participating within the party no matter what. And where did they get this example from? They got this example from post-revolutionary societies where the vanguard party held state power, and working within the party was your realm of political participation. But we don't live in a post-revolutionary society. They are advocating for loyalty and dedication to a party that is not only doesn't hold state power, but isn't even that popular. And so, like, I think that a lot of the mistakes that came out of this Cold War era, and that is definitely brushed off into this day, has a lot to do with the fact that they were so tied to the Soviet model or even the Chinese model that held state power that they ignored the fact that they had no state power at all. That's something that, like, you can't. I feel like party politics are complex because, yes, being a revolutionary within a political party, you're dedicating your life to that. It's a full-time job. You're a professional revolutionary. But at the same time, you can't treat it like it is that it is a state power wielding entity. You can't treat it like that, and that's what happened with a lot of these people. Is they were trying to emulate what was going on in post-revolutionary societies when they had not even, prepared for a revolution of their own, and that's why groups like the Black Panther Party just blew past them in the '60s.
And I think it's quite a shame that a lot of that these people just disregard their achievements. In the short amount of time they have existed, they accomplished more than the CPUSA did in like a century.
If you, well, outside of the 1930s, I think people really forget about the 1930s. CPUSA was, that was our heyday. That was, like, I suggest everyone go read Hammer and Hoe. It's about the movement in Alabama. The biggest party section in the country in the 30s was in Alabama. It was because the black population. It was way different back then. I think it was before they got bogged down with sticking so close to the Soviet line. You know, I feel like that was a mistake for so many parties. It was relying too much on what the Soviets said and what the Soviets believed, and less upon what their own communities said. And why do you see the Black Panther Party doing so much in such a short amount of time? Because they went right into their communities. They went right to the core of them. And they did mass politics in the streets, right there with them. And that's something that the CPUSA hadn't done since the 30s. You know, during the United Front era, they were too busy supporting FDR against, you know, the fascism. That's a whole different thing. Post-war, it was de-Stalinization, and that fucked up a lot of parties, and it was just a mess. And I feel like that a lot of those qualities that came out of that time, that post-1930s golden age, really fucked up the party. And what else really fucked up the party was the New Left. And they saw the New Left coming, and they associated the Black Panther Party with the New Left when it really wasn't. The Black Panther Party was an organic thing, as opposed to the New Left being a very student-based thing and ultra. Well, I would say ultra. But the Black Panther Party wasn't a part of that New Left. But you go into these Marxist-Leninist circles, and they still talk about it like it was.
Which is ridiculous, because why was the government afraid of the Black Panthers and not the CPUSA? Just think about it.
Right.
In my opinion, I don't think a communist party in a pre-revolutionary society has legitimacy if they are tolerated by the state.
That's a good point. I don't know if I agree with that, but I mean I totally understand that point. I understand. I mean, the way I understand things is that there is during the protracted struggle, there is a period of legal struggle, and there's a period of illegal struggle. Now, how that comes about, I believe it's a very organic process. I don't think you can force it, but I think
I just feel like when you're,
yeah.
I just feel like when you're tolerated by the government I just don't think you have as much legitimacy as a party that isn't, because the Black Panthers, they actually practice, you know, mutual aid, which is like something that not I don't see any communist parties have done since that you know the Panthers, and there's a lot to learn from them.
We do that. I mean, a lot of communist parties do it, but no one was as effective at it as the Black Panthers, because no one else understood what serving the people was actually about. It wasn't just about winning support. It was about connecting with the masses and listening to them, appealing to their sensibilities, adapting your politics based off of your interactions with the community. And I think that that's the big separation point between the old party and the Panthers and Pantherite style groups that really focus on like what's going on in the community and talking with them. And I think where the CPUSA is held back is the only real place where they do that is in the trade union movement. And as we know, this country is deindustrializing, and the trade union jobs are all being exported to be exploited for cheaper. And well, we're here. We're in this position where the Marxist-Leninist classic stronghold, where we did have our ears on the beating hearts of the masses, is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And we no longer have our ear on the beating heart of the majority of this country, because the majority of this country isn't in that classical Marxist wheelhouse anymore. And this is where the dogmatism is holding them back to the extreme. They need to re-examine the position of lumpen and lumpenized workers within the revolutionary context of the United States. They really do. Otherwise, they're going to be left in the dustbin of history.
Well, I just feel like these people are stuck, in the mindset of the 1930s, and
Yeah,
not, or looking at other countries and wanting to emulate them. And in America, it's such an uphill battle. America is the most anti-communist country on the planet.
yeah. Next to like the illegal states in Southern Korea and in Taiwan, like I can't think of many that even come. They come close, but not nearly as close. The USA is, the mastermind of anti-communism. They really are.
It's like this. It's ingrained in the culture. It's like, how do you fight something like that? And I don't think these people have any solutions. You could out of the movement into the masses. When you hear it in the context of America, it's vague to me. When Mao says it, he means the Chinese masses. He means when you hear it in America, the context is not the same.
No, it's not. It's not. I think that idea really has a great. I mean, in this country, I think that there's one thing that will come long before any socialist revolution, and it's going to be uh, the struggles for national liberation that will come first. And so into the masses for these people means into the masses of their nations and their communities. It doesn't mean all of us. It means some of them trying to determine, the fate, trying to free their peoples from the domination.
I just interpret it as white people. That's what I see when I hear out of the movement into the masses by white leftists. That's what I see. I don't see it as the masses. They mean white people.
Yeah. I mean, when I say masses, to clarify. I actually think I clarified this to you a long time ago on the Falcone stream or something. But when I say masses, I mean people who survive by not exploiting others. That's the masses to me. And so that excludes a lot of people. A lot of people won't like that. But also at the same time, like, first and foremost, I understand that the primary contradiction is imperialism, and colonialism is one of its disgusting parasitic appendages, and we have to achieve this national cultural autonomy and liberation for these groups determined by them and in the way they decide before us as white people need to have a chance to even have an opportunity to determine anything. Because, for these MLs, look back at Lenin on this. He made it clear that there cannot be socialism while nations are oppressed inside that same space. Like oppression and socialism, oppression of the masses, I should say. We do oppress the certain groups of people, but that's what the dictatorship of the proletariat's all about. But you have to dictate over someone, right? And that's let's point to that ultras, right? Ultras are people who think after revolution we should have our communism. We should already have the productive forces should have already shifted and all these things. They don't understand it's an ongoing process. And
honestly,
yeah.
I actually think the transition from socialism to communism would take at least a few centuries because you'd have to completely.
It's beyond the purview of individual lifetimes. This is what even the construction of socialism, right? Like what people need to realize is the revolution can take a day. It can take 5 minutes to take state power, but to build socialism, construct socialism, and build a new world to change the productive forces to begin to slowly erode at class contradictions, that takes beyond the purview of our lifetimes. But that doesn't mean that we can't accomplish a lot of good right now, a lot of immediate demands, a lot of immediate successes. But the entire process of shifting society from one stage to another is just a massive it's in a massive human global scale effort by all of human collective effort by humanity. It's not just as so simple as we did revolution. Now it's time.
I'd argue we would have to do 5-year plans in certain phases. A global wide cultural revolution would have to be done before we can even think about going to the transition, because all this culture of capitalism, and individualism, it would take generations to stomp this stuff out, because you would still have, the children or the parents or the grandparents of the people that are counter-revolutionaries. You would need multiple generations to let their ideas die out.
Well, look what happened to the Soviet Union, right? Like we can see just by that it takes more than it takes a long time to root out these people. It's not easy, and they've made a lot of mistakes. Don't get me wrong. That didn't help them at all. But you're right. I believe that we haven't truly achieved, late stage socialism until we've enfranchised the masses with political, cultural, social, and economic power. And what that means is the power means the ability to determine their fates, enfranchising these people. And like it trying to like imagine all of this transition to socialism happening within your lifetime, and like communism coming like on the horizon. Unfortunately, that's something that a lot of ultras hope for, and that's that individual aspect that they want to be able to see it and they can achieve it, and that's why they trend towards these things, I believe. I don't think it's out of hate. I think it's out of, just wanting to get themselves out of this fucking fresh hell that we live in. I don't blame them at all, but unfortunately, this process is going to be hard. It's not going to be paradise after we achieve state power. It's going to be hell. It's going to be a long, hard road. But what we will do is be able to change humanity, save this planet, and help it last for thousands of more years, instead of dying, have generations and generations of more people living lives without suffering or exploitation and oppression. And it's our duty to set up these future generations so, at least the next one after us is set up in a better position than we were. So their lives will be a little bit less fucked.
As cliche as this is, communism is building the world of tomorrow for the children of tomorrow, and not for ourselves. Even hell, not if any of us have kids, our children will not live to see it. Our grandchildren won't live to see it. Our great grandchildren won't live to see it. It probably would be like your descendants, like 200 to 300 years from now, would probably be able to see it, but we would not be able to see it. It's folly. In 100 years, because you cannot build socialism and go from that to communism afterwards, because there's still a lot of forces out there after the collapse of capitalism that's going to fight tirelessly to revive the system. And we have to make it so their ideas are so weak that they'll never have a chance to take power, and they're not going to stop. The capitalists don't care if all of humanity dies to preserve their privilege. They don't care.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll literally destroy the planet. They don't give a fuck. They're inhuman.
They'll sacrifice their own children and grandchildren just to keep their wealth. That's how inhumane they are.
Exactly. I mean, to hoard that much wealth in the first place, you have to be sick. I really believe that takes some sort of evil. And that's just, my religious perspective. But I really want to say that these people don't disappear. Their ideas don't disappear overnight. And when you say cultural revolution, I just want to caution people that he's not talking about mobilizing the children of the Red Guards to go beat up their teachers. He's talking about transforming the culture of society by building a new culture and that takes time. And the same with at the same time that takes, it will take for us to erode these ideas, to proletarianize the petite bourgeois and the bourgeois. It'll take time, and
Well,
it's go ahead.
My idea for cultural revolution is 5-year plans for multiple. I don't know how long we would have to do a 5-year plan, but if I were to do it, a 5-year plan of this would be more focused on the younger generation, of educating them about an alternative way to look at the world besides this hyper individualistic capitalist bullshit
Exactly.
that we're living.
It really starts with education, right? Like that's the that's a fundamental part of society that like any post-revolutionary society immediately needs to attack, because we know the youth are the future. We know the builders of the future are the youth. It's just logic. And so they've been indoctrinated by the cultural hegemony of the former ruling class, or the current ruling class that would be former in the future. That's all of us have this innate liberalism and anti-communism that are born here. We have to unlearn it, and to the day we die, we have to keep unlearning this cultural hegemony that's been instilled in us. Gramsci really went into this great in his prison diaries, or prison notebooks. Everyone should go read Gramsci. He's amazing. But and so to break that cultural hegemony, we have to build a new cultural hegemony. The new ruling classes, that takes over society under a socialist society, the new ruling class, they have to build a new cultural hegemony to block out, those counter-revolutionary and reactionary ideas, and build these, like you said, these new ways of thinking and seeing the world that are outside of this commodified, disgusting, reactionary worldview.
If there's one thing I think the Soviet Union did right, was the 5-year plans.
Oh,
the
yeah.
fact that they abandoned that, in my opinion, was the beginning of the end for the Soviet Union, because 5-year plans are very effective. I mean,
that's why Vietnam, Laos, Cuba, China, DPRK, they all still use 5-year plans, and they all still exist. Regardless of what you think of their base economies, they all still exist using 5-year plans, so there is merit in its usefulness.
And let's be honest, there's no way the U.S. government doesn't use the 5-year plans in their agenda. There's no way they don't.
Of course they do. There's large projections and stuff. It's just more free market and capitalist,
5-year plans is one of the most effective ways of building a society. And under socialism, if you do like 5-year plans continuously for enough time, you'd have the children, grandchildren and great grandchildren. I don't even like to use this word, but indoctrinated, if you want to talk about, because it has negative connotations. So I'll just use educated in a new revolutionary way of thinking.
Yeah.
But because the older ways of thinking will eventually die off if you do this, and if you still have people that cling to it, they're just going to be looked at as fringe and crazy.
Yeah, that's a fact. And what you're explaining is so distinct from like what everyone thinks when they hear cultural revolution, which is arrest all the Confucians and
I have a lot of issues with the Chinese cultural revolution.
Well, yeah, I mean, y'all, I have my video on it, and everyone knows how I feel about it. I feel it was horrific, and that's based a lot off of primary sources, but also speaking to former child Red Guards, people who were children in the Red Guards who were forced to kill their neighbors, family, friends, teachers, doctors, as children in extrajudicial killings. They had no choice. They didn't know what was going on. Like, let me ask a normal fucking adult American, can you explain Confucianism? No. Oh, imagine being a child and then being forced to go out and determine for yourself who's a Confucian or not, and then murder them based on that. Like, this is the horrors these kids were going through. And that's not what a cultural revolution is about. The cultural revolution will be vindicated. Will be vindicated by the way Dark Sinovia said it would be, which is
5-year plans.
5-year plans, but it would be vindicated by the fact that, well, where do correct ideas come from? Social practice. These correct ideas will be going forward. People will understand that those old ways of thinking are gone. And the people who still think like that, you don't need to kill them or imprison them. They'll just be looked at as fringe weirdos.
Okay, I don't think everything about the Cultural Revolution was bad, Max. Whatsoever. It's just my biggest issues with the Cultural Revolution primarily is I don't think Mao should have given as much freedom to the reactionaries that he did.
You have to understand about the Cultural Revolution is that Mao had nothing to do with that. That had nothing to do with Mao. Mao was being told, it was being ghostwritten for anyone who's read Mao before and then reads his stuff after the mid 60s. All the poetic ways that Mao talks are gone. He starts sounding a lot like his literary critic wife, actually. And this is generally what people believe over there. Mao wasn't in his capacity. By this time, Mao was in his 70s. He had no idea what was going on. He was old. He was a figurehead. The Cultural Revolution was instigated by a group of literary critics in Shanghai, labor aristocracy, that being the Gang of Four. And they criticized a play that you might have seen my video, Hai Rui is dismissed from office. And their criticism of this play, and they called for a cultural revolution to get rid of these reactionary ideals, even though it was a play that Mao loved. So, but they said it's because it criticized Mao. This wasn't the Cultural Revolution wasn't an organic thing. It wasn't a good thing. It wasn't based out of Mao's ideas. It was based out of a group of literary critics who ended up seizing power in Shanghai and creating the Shanghai Commune, and later took a complete state power under the Gang of Four and started things like the Three Worlds theory. So, people just don't really understand where the Cultural Revolution comes from. It's not some popular movement. No, and the children were mobilized by Lin Biao. So that makes it even doubly worse. And they were even put to worse work by Mao's wife and the Gang of Four. Mao wasn't in his capacities at this time. Mao hated people like that. Honestly, Mao hated that. He would have called them ultra leftists, like what our topic here is today. Because that's what they were. They were ultra leftists.
I really wish ultra leftist, the term is actually used in its proper context instead of being used as a slur.
Right.
Because
exactly.
to me, it's borderline racist, honestly, because most of the people that are ultra left are people of color. Right.
Like black nationalists and Filipino revolutionaries and Indian revolutionaries, and all these people that really they have no place speaking bad about. These people are fighting for their freedom, and you're sitting there fucking critiquing them from America in your nice house. Like, come on.
I hate to say this, but most of the communists of the world are not fucking white. Most of them are in China.
That's a fact. Most of the communists in the world are not white. Most people in the world are not white.
Yeah.
Communism needs to stop being about white people. It's not about white people. It's about the masses of the fucking planet. And white people need to stop fucking putting themselves so far ahead. This Eurocentrism that comes out of a lot of these tendencies in North America just reminds me of neo-Trotskyism. We will lead the revolution from the industrial center. It's like, no, you won't. Shut up.
Trotskyists are fucking cringe. I mean, seriously, it's like they claim that every country that's ever attempted socialism was never socialism. It's like, okay, you don't like
anti-communism is what it is.
You don't like how the Soviets established communism or Mao. What the fuck is your solution to preserve your revolution?
So this is another point I like to make, is that it's very easy to criticize ideas that exist in material reality when your ideas have never been tested by material reality, right?
Agreed.
So whose ideas have been tested in a post-revolutionary material reality? There's been several. I would say ML's I would say anarchists. I would say, I would even say third worldists, because I just believe MLs and Maoists from the third world are third worldists. Like, they're just without saying. Just by their very nature, they're third worldists. But I believe these things have been taken root in material reality, and so they have a leg to stand on it. They have created an example, and they've created something that is an alternative that is functioning and working, and a good thing. But if your ideas have never been tested, Trotsky's ideas have never been tested. I mean, there's never been a successful Trotskyist revolution. There's never even been a group that got close. They can't even stick together. They'll split before it happens.
Honestly, not all Trotskyists are bad. Oh God. I just blocked the wrong person. Oh shit. What do I do?
Did you block them or just mute them for a few minutes?
I blocked the wrong person.
Oh, Jawad. No!
I'm so sorry, Jawad. I'm so sorry I blocked you.
I'm pretty sure you can unban him. Oh, I see who you're trying to I see who you're trying to remove.
I was trying to remove a troll. It's like,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It was never.
Oh, it's Bad Our Boy. I know Bad Our Boy.
I blocked him on accident. It's like, God, this is why I fucking hate these fucking fascists that invade, because they so many goddamn stock accounts of here. It's like, Jesus, get a fucking life.
Yeah, he put one of the Rosenberg's names on and then said David Duke for president. What a fucking piece of shit. Anti-Semites get the wall.
Anti-Semites don't deserve anything. Oh God. I don't know how to unblock this guy. Guest.
I think if you go on the YouTube itself and not StreamYard, you can unblock them.
All right.
Yeah, Bad Our Boy is a Lebanese Islamic socialist. By
the way, I am really sorry for blocking you. I really am. There's so many damn trolls. I will fix it right now. Because this is why I cannot stand fascists, because they have nothing better to do with their time than to troll, in comment sections.
Yeah, it's true.
But anyway, let's continue the topic we were discussing.
Oh, of course. Something much more productive and cool.
Yeah.
How to defend revolution. Have a glorious chairman vouch debate the White Army.
I don't know how anyone could take that fucking clown Voss seriously.
It's just a lot of teenagers, liberal teenagers, who think radicalism is neat.
They view radicalism as a phase.
Yeah, as a coat of paint. It's just an aesthetic.
Exactly.
When you're a revolutionary, you have to dedicate your life. It's not. Yeah, being a revolutionary isn't LARP. It's dedicating your life to bettering the world. And if you don't do that, well, you can't really call yourself a revolutionary if you don't. Of course, everyone has limitations, right? We have financial distance limitations. Sometimes some of us can't travel, but we all have methods that we can take to contribute, whether it's through socialist education or organizing people in spaces that are unorthodox, like online, for example. While very online people are horrible, online is also a great place to bring together people that would have never talked before. Our ability to speak to communists from the third world, or just people from the third world, and learn about how imperialism and colonialism affects them, has never been like it is before today. And we're in a unique position to show solidarity with these people in a way that's never been done before. And it's amazing. It really is.
I agree.
Oh, the comments are going wild. I got to check this out.
I have so many fucking blocked people.
Oh, Maxwell. I like Maxwell.
I seriously want to apologize to the person. I did not mean to block you. Jesus. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to fix this.
I think if you go on like if you have a phone or something, go on, or on the computer, go on Facebook, or not Facebook, geez, YouTube, and you can like go to that person's profile, like their account, and go to the settings and unblock them like that way. Because I've had to do that before, because I've accidentally blocked someone who I liked.
Yeah, it's just this fucking YouTube. So I'm at to physically go to the person's channel.
Yeah. You can't. I don't think you can do it from StreamYard.
I'm not doing it through StreamYard, actually.
Oh, yeah. I think you do have to. Gay marriage certificate rights activist. You should be in federal prison. Imagine being that afraid of gay people.
I know. This guy is a freak.
What a weak man. And usually the homophobic people are like closeted and they don't know how to handle their confused sexual or gender confusion, and so they just take it out on us. And you know what? It's pathetic, and frankly I giggle every time I see it, because pathetic people like that deserve to be clowned on and made fun of.
They deserve to be mocked.
Yeah, they deserve to be doxxed, and they deserve to have repercussions for their words. And frankly, like, they think that words like that bother me, like I'm a liberal or something. Like, are you kidding? Cuck boy? I don't fucking care.
Oh, God.
I'm a fucking trans Jew communist, trans Jewish religious Jewish communist on the internet. You gotta have thick skin. You gotta have thick skin. People fucking hate me. They say all kinds of nasty shit about me.
Jesus, Borman has so many damn accounts. I'm not even exaggerating.
Oh, Bad R Boy's trolling. By the way, we just agree we don't like each other. He acts like a fucking reactionary. He's not. He just likes to trigger liberals.
Bad Boy Gaming. That's the same guy.
Bad R Boy, fucking stop. You know you don't hate me. You know you fucking love me. Stop pretending like you hate me.
Okay. Okay. I am so sorry for blocking you on accident. I didn't mean to.
We'll get it fixed up for you, Jawad.
I'll try. I'll try to fix it up. It's just fuck this.
Jawad always comes on my streams. Jawad's awesome.
All right, let's focus back on what the hell we were talking about. Ultra leftists. What the hell were we getting at?
Well, I think we're like, from the start, it's like it doesn't mean anything anymore. And, it used to mean people who wanted to basically inorganically accelerate revolution, and through it they wreck and destroy and don't progress, and, are usually left in the dustbin of history. But now it just means anyone who doesn't follow the line of Caleb, apparently.
Socialism, sneakers. I couldn't resist. I had to say it.
Well, I gotta say, when you're living in China and you see all those Chinese brands that are like really close copies to the real brands and shit, and you go over there and they're like a quarter of the price, and you're like, fuck, this is awesome.
I actually agree with Maxwell Glover. We should call it left adventurism.
Oh, yes.
Leftism.
I do like that, because it is left adventurism. And that's exactly what it is. Like the Symbionese Liberation Army. That's a left adventurous group. You know about them? The Symbionese Liberation Army?
They sound like a joke.
It almost seems like it. But they were like this super ultra leftist group from the 60s that kidnapped like the daughter of a rich guy, and she like became a member of them through brainwashing on purpose, and they did like terrorism and left adventurist bank robbing and bombs and shit, and eventually they're all put in prison. And it was like a sex cult, of course. One of these micro left adventurist new left things. There's actually a really good movie that talks to this. It's an avant-garde movie by Jean-Luc Godard. It's a French art film, but it's actually really good. It's called La Chinois, the Chinese, and it's about this like group of like this Maoist terrorist cell of 5 people in France, young people in the six. It's a film from the 60s, like in '69, and they talk a lot of theory, deep theory and shit, but it really shows the detriment and like the ill effects of ultra leftism, or I should say left adventurism, and what and this attitude and what it does to people. And it's a really interesting film. It's called La Chinois by Jean-Luc Godard, and it's actually, I think it's a really good one. Jean-Luc Godard was like a Maoist. He was a Maoist during the New Left era in France, and he made a lot of these films, but it was also like a critique of his own people. So it comes from a place of love, and it's very interesting. And there's also a Maoist film about British Maoists by him called British Sounds. This stuff is really cool. Jean-Luc Godard and like the revolutionary left filmmakers of the 60s and 70s is very good. Like Petit Lavou. Sorry. I'll stop talking about French Maoist film.
Well, you want one of the first examples I can think of ultra leftism in action is I think any I don't know any leftist that doesn't know the Night of the Long Knives, where an anarchist burned down I forgot what it was, but it essentially was used as a justification by the Nazi Party to massacre all communists in the country because of what an anarchist did.
Well, that's a lot like the Reichstag fire. People suspect that it was set up.
It was set up, but the guy.
But yeah, there's this old idea from anarchists, and you're right. Earliest examples of left adventurism comes from early anarchists. Here's an even earlier one from you. A Serbian national anarchist who believed in the propaganda of the deed didn't start World War I, but it was a catalyst that led to open war. The assassination of Duke Franz Ferdinand. And yes, there were national anarchists back then. There still are, actually. It's weird. But and also just the propaganda of the deed. And you had people like the Blanquists, like I was talking about earlier, these Marxist conspiratorial people who believed in the propaganda of the deed, and like, once we do this amazing thing, like assassinate a political figure, everyone's going to be inspired and do revolution, and the revolution will be done tomorrow. That's sort of what they believed in. And there still are some small groups that believe in the propaganda of the deed, but for the most part, anarchist circles completely reject this idea. They don't like that sort of hero thing, propaganda of the deed, heroic people. They don't like that nowadays. But back in the day, in the early days, that existed. Yeah.
I don't know that many modern, anarchists that would support such a thing.
No, yeah. Modern anarchists are not tied to their like what I put in my anarchism video recently, defending it, is these founders of anarchism had different motivations. They had different ideas. There's the century of social practice separating them. These are different people with different ideas that, have a similar name. Their ultimate, but their motivations and ideas and methods are not the same anymore. It's just different. They're completely different. It's not honest for us to look back at, these people of the past, like the anti-Semitic Bakunin or the left adventurists, propaganda of the deedists of the past. These aren't not the anarchist comrades of today. It's a completely different beast. And yeah, left adventurist exists amongst all tendencies, I would say. That even ML.
The question I do have is, why is it that the Maupin cult, why do they shit on people that actually do actual work, that do real social practice? Why are they the ultras when they are doing everything in their power to protect their communities from fucking fascists or being massacred by fascists? It's like, it seems like I don't even want to call them MLs, but why is it that the communists that actually do actual social practice are the ones that are considered ultras? I don't get it.
I think a lot of it has to do with it goes back to this individualism, right? The people feel inadequate. They see people doing work that have different ideas from them. I don't think it's conscious. I don't think that they're thinking, I'm going to talk shit about them because they're doing better than me. I think there's, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I think there's something about seeing people succeed that have different ideas from you that fucking riles you up. I know in the back of my mind, whenever I see like a fucking reactionary succeeding, it pisses me off. So I guess for them, like, they don't really like what they consider ultras. And so when they see these people like out there in the streets, they're like, this doesn't lead to anything. You're just blah, 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 blah. Like, misunderstanding that these people understand that what they're doing, like serving the people programs and mutual aid, isn't going to lead to revolution. What they're doing is helping their community, learning from them, and uplifting them. And I don't know why there's such an aversion to that.
What the hell's up with the intense anti-Antifa sentiment from them? Because
I don't know what that's I don't know what that's about. That's always freaked me out. PCUSA was about that. Like Angelo hated. I don't know if you're around during that time, but he fucking hated Antifa, and even made a whole class about how it sucked.
I just see like the anti-Antifa position as borderline fascist, because it's like, if Caleb Muffin's wondering why Antifa don't defend him or don't do anything, it's because why would they? When you're constantly shitting on people that are doing the actual on the ground work, while
there's literally nothing wrong with doing anti-fascist action.
There isn't, and I'm sorry to say this, but the masses are not always right. There's nothing in Lenin's writings or Mao that told us we have to cater to the worst aspects of the masses, and never, ever.
No. When we say we do the politics of the masses, we're not talking about appealing to reactionary sensibilities. We're talking about appealing to sensibilities that are, for lack of a better word, progressive, right? Things that we can pull people out of that reactionary hole with, not appealing to their reactionary positions that already exist. Our entire purpose is to clarify our position, and if we're correct and right, and we show them that, then we don't have to force anything. It'll just, the contradictions will overcome each other. The person will realize that, oh fuck, the ruling class is actually the people I need to be pissed off about, not, like immigrants or anything like that. So let's fucking fix the problems. And when these contradictions overcome each other, people are not going to be as fucking angry anymore, right? When you don't have to worry about paying bills, when you don't have to worry about finding a job, when you have the ability to send your kids to school, you can get health care, you have food in your belly and a place to eat and a place to sleep, you're not going to be nearly as fucking angry at and trying to blame other people on your fucking issues. I don't know.
I just see that a lot of classism from these people that abuse the word ultra, because most of the people that they are shitting on are essentially poor people that don't have any power in society, that have no say on where everything goes. They're people that are constantly thinking about when is going to be my next meal. How am I going to pay my bills this month? How am I going to help my brother, my mother, or my children?
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Because the middle class are not the masses. I'm sorry, they're not the fucking masses. They're not.
They're while the middle. I don't really like the term middle class, but for lack of a better term, the middle class exists, right? It took me a long time to even come to this in my Marxist head, but they're a minority in this country. They're a distinct minority.
Increasingly.
Increasingly, of course, especially with the deindustrialization. The labor aristocracy is shrinking, and more people are becoming lumpenized. This shit's changing. You know, the United States, they don't need a domestic proletariat anymore, right? They need this disposable labor from the lumpen for like shit like Uber or waiter jobs and stuff. But they can exploit those industrial jobs and get away with it in countries they have imperial control over, for and get exploitation for pennies on the dollar. And so, where does that leave? You know, this classic working class in America. You know, many of them, I think, that they're taking our jobs. You know, like, they understand it's about economy, but they just aren't class conscious. You know, a lot of these people are so close.
And yeah, I agree with you, Spec TV. According to MOP and Antifa, yeah, it's like, who the hell thinks that Antifa are mostly people who get perfect grades in a university? That's such nonsense. Have you? It's why would a student in a university? Why would they? Okay, I'm not saying this to shit on anyone. Why would you go out to protest and jeopardizing your, you know, ability to go to that school or to graduate by protesting against the state? Why would you do that?
Because I was out of my mind. I did it.
Well, I'm just going by according to Caleb's mopping. Like, why would you do
Yeah.
that? Jeopardize that?
Well, I used to be a left adventurist back then, so to put that into perspective,
Yeah,
and
but
my early college days. But
yeah, but that's not most of Antifa. Antifa
no, no,
come from
no, no.
various different backgrounds,
Well,
and Antifa.
I come from a working class background. I mean, I was in debt the entire time I was in school, and that's part of the reason why I was so fucking pissed off, because I could barely eat. You know, like I was hungry and angry, and looking for justice. And ever since 2009, I have been doing protests, anti-fascist work, mutual aid, community service through all different kinds of organizations with all different types of people. And let me tell you, there's no one I would rather stand next to than some fucking green-haired femme that's twice my height, because that bitch will throw down. Like, these people will throw down for you, and these people who talk shit about them are too scared to show their faces. These people will fucking throw down when you're in trouble. And I've seen people killed, right? I've seen people killed. Saw one of my greatest friends bricked in the fucking head and put into a coma and later die during one of these protests. That's why we're anti-fascists, you know? We were there for the Occupy movement. These people came to kick us out. We weren't the aggressors. It was pure defense. Anti-fascism is defensive. It's not offensive.
Well, it's all these people that shit on the Antifa from the who are supposed leftists. They've I don't think they've ever touched grass. If they have, they've forgotten what it's like to actually be in those positions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Caleb, what frustrates me is Caleb has touched grass. When I first heard of Caleb, he was out in the streets fighting for trans rights, like fighting fucking reactionaries, literally fighting them. That's when I first heard of Caleb Maupin, when he was in the WWP. So just to give y'all some perspective about like how much he has changed, he's a different person.
What
Really.
frustrates me about Caleb Maupin is I looked up to him. It was the Alexander Dugin, conference is what changed my perception of him. I've not been able to see him the same way since. I know for a time that it was ultra leftists that showed me that information. So in 2020, last year, I gave Caleb a second chance because, like, you know what, in my mindset at the time, it's probably just a one-time thing. I don't think he's actually a fascist. I don't think he actually,
he's not. He's not.
Well, I'm skeptical of Caleb Maupin if he is or not. I'm going back and forth.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's just
what I know about Caleb, and he's been in the movement for so long, and he's literally stood out in the streets for people like me before and fucking fought. I'll always have a piece of respect for him for that, you know? Like, he's done work. And his, him interacting with Julian, I can't condemn him for that because frankly he didn't say anything that was damning. Like I think it's skeptical to hang out with someone like that, of course. I wouldn't do it. I'm not a big fan of Caleb. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. But I'll always have a piece of respect for Caleb in the same sort of way that Jason does, you know? This mutual understanding of someone who's been in the movement for a long time, someone who's fought for people like me, and someone who really has done good in their time. And I don't agree with the path that he's taken. And I'm skeptical of him as well, don't get me wrong. But I don't think it's fair enough to call. I mean, you don't call him one. You're just suspicious of it.
Well,
so
it's
that's
just another thing that's suspicious. That's frustrating about with him. I want to like Caleb. I really do.
Right? Me too. I want to, but he's just so frustrating with the shit that he says. It's like, hey.
It's like that's just my issue. It's just I don't like it's mostly the culture that he's spawned, which
yeah, I dislike his community much more than I dislike him. Right? He lets a lot of stuff slide. Let's just say that. He lets a lot of stuff.
It's not what he says, it's what he doesn't say is what pisses me off. It's like Jason, whether you guys like or hate him, he's willing to call out the bullshit from people of his audience. He's willing to do that. He's not willing to let it fester. Caleb won't do that.
Yeah, he doesn't like to address people's concerns about him and his community. He doesn't. And that's why I don't spend time in his community. I check in on his videos, of course. Sometimes he's got great stuff to say. Sometimes he's got whack stuff to say. Generally, I agree with you that it's really this community, and not saying anything says a whole lot.
Okay. People could say what they want about infrared. They could say what they want, but who influenced him in the first place?
Oz? I don't think anyone influenced him. Oz's ideas are not like Caleb's.
What?
Haas's ideas are not like Caleb's. I'll tell you that now.
He was influenced by Caleb, though. That's my point.
I guess.
And I don't think it's fair to give him shit when you're willing to let what Caleb Maupin says slide.
Well, I think what pisses people off about Haas is that he's right all the time.
Hey.
No, I mean I'm joking, of course. I disagree with him on some stuff, but when he talks on a subject and when he speaks on a subject, he makes sure he knows what the fuck he's talking about before he speaks on it. So that's what frustrates people, is that they don't like him, and whenever he just refuses to speak about shit he doesn't know about, right? If he doesn't know about it, he won't talk about it. And
I have a soft
really
spot
in his community. I'm in this Discord tab. His community is interesting because, he has like trans mods and Jewish mods, and like it's very pro LGBT. Like they say transphobia is a cuck boy thing and stuff. It's just this weird culture. And people, y'all can disagree with Haas. Haas is a disagreeable with person, but I don't think he fucking cares. The thing about it is that I can't be hard on Haas, is because he knows what the fuck he's talking about. So it's hard to be critical of him when he knows what he's talking about.
I know I'm biased, but I have a soft spot for Haas mainly because Muslims have never ever gave me shit, ever. They've for the most part have left me alone and never harassed me.
I love Muslims. Muslims are the best. Muslims are some of the some of my best subscribers are Muslims, and I love it when they come on. They've come on during streams where I talk about Judaism, and to me it's evident from the start, from the day Muhammad protected us in the Charter of Medina, like that Muslims and Jews have had this deep understanding between each other and tolerance. Our golden ages in Al-Andalus were under the Muslim Muslim caliphate in Spain. You know, like Christians love to fucking persecute us, pogrom us. Muslims never did that. Of course, there were crimes under our oppression, but that was not due to them being Muslim, but just, you know, oppressors. For the most part, Muslims have always been the kindest people to Jews, and so Muslims have just a way of seeing the world that's so empathetic and humane. You know, like it's this way of seeing the world, like where they genuinely are concerned for the material things being better around them. It's very practice-based faith, a lot like Judaism. There, it's less about belief, of course, believing in the prophet and the oneness of God and everything, but mostly it's about what you do, which is what I love so much about Islam. It's a beautiful faith, and all of its different denominations and stuff. It's very beautiful faith.
Well, Islam is one of the reasons why I'm at least when I actually learned more what Islam was. I don't know more than an actual Muslim, mind you.
Oh no, yeah.
I will never know more, but it's one of the reasons I'm turned off by atheism. I know I know new atheism is what I'm going to mainly be referring to, but atheism as a whole, I'm completely turned off by it because of how. Because
Yeah.
I just see atheism. I know this is not going to make people happy. I see atheism, at least as in America, especially, is another form of white supremacy.
Yeah, first world atheism is just white supremacy. Now, the atheism of, say, someone from the Indian subcontinent or Africa is of a completely different nature, because faiths in their societies, um, of course, used in a domineering control and in a different way, and we have to respect that about them. But also, we have to respect the faiths of people, because I mean, people always love to misquote, or not misquote, but cherry pick Marx saying that religion is the opium of the masses. First of all, that just means it's like medicine for those who are hurt. Opium was a medicine back then, not like an abused drug. And also, the rest of it goes on to say how religion is the cry of the soul in a soul crushing world. You know, like it's a reprieve from this soul crushing, alienating system we live under. And atheism is, first of all, it's intellectually dishonest to say there is no God. You're a fucking idiot if you say that.
Well, there's no. Okay, so I don't know where I believe in, honestly, but I'll say this: there's no fucking proof one way or the other, and I think it's nothing but stupid, childish nonsense debating either the matter.
You know, I would challenge the fact that there's no proof. Just because there's no empirical evidence doesn't mean there isn't proof and evidence.
Well, there's no. I look at it as there's no evidence one way or the other, and it's a waste of time
It's
debating.
hardly a waste of time. It's a very important question, but I don't think it's a question for politics, and I don't think it's a question for. I don't think it's a. I don't think it's. I think it's a. It's a in your own community discussion, not something that should be. You should be going into other communities, whether religious or not, and trying to promote one position or the other. Like you said, it's just. I believe faith is personal. I believe faith is personal unless it's a fundamental part or cornerstone to an oppressed society's liberation. I think the faith is a very personal thing, at least in the Western context, and that me trying to convince you that God exists, my version of God exists, and that you should believe in my faith is a sin. So, like, for me, it doesn't matter. There is no hell. You're not going to go to hell. I don't believe there's hell. Most Jews don't. That's still a debate. Even heaven's a debate amongst Jews, but that we do not believe there is eternal punishment for a short lifetime of sin. A lifetime of sin, life is short in the context of eternity. And we do not believe that a short lifetime warrants forever punishment. I think that that's frankly ridiculous.
Well, I'm simply not sure if there is one or not, and I That's
That's
just where
fair.
I stand.
That's
I'm not
honest.
sure.
That's an intellectually honest position. I never say that. I never say. I mean, I believe. I believe in all my heart that there is God, but I mean, I'm not going to be able to fucking produce anything to back that up outside of our own community's religious documents. Um, so yeah,
The thing about atheists in the first world is they're very hypocritical, and if you and here's why: if they truly were an atheist, why the fuck are they working with Christian extremists and Zionists? Why? If they don't, I don't think atheists believe in their own bullshit because
no, they don't. They don't buy their own horse shit. It's just
most
really lazy empiricism. Empiricism is like this old 1700s way of fucking seeing the world. It's lazy and it's goofy, and it's not useful.
the mo- the best atheists are the ones that don't make atheism as part of their identity.
Oh yeah, the atheists are the ones who just don't generally talk about it unless prompted, unless it's a part of some sort of you know
Look,
educational thing or
look at Stalin. Stalin is possibly one of the greatest atheists that have ever lived. Yet he never made that part of his identity.
You want to hear a funny anecdote?
What?
His mother would call him when he was the general secretary. She would call him in Moscow, and she would say, "Joseph, you should have became a member of the church. You should have became a member of the church." So he's like, "Mom, I'm trying to run the country here." And he had a very very deep connection with the Orthodox Church, and very empathetic towards it. And the same with the Jewish faith and the Jewish people. Had a very complex relationship with us. Stalin was a very complicated character, and yes, he was an atheist, but he was not dismissal of religion. He brought orthodoxy. He stopped the state atheism and returned it to state secularism, and sponsored the Orthodox Church. The many people within the Russian Orthodox Church see him as a saint. So he had a very interesting relationship with religion, but I think it was a very clever one. I think it was very well played and very, very dialectical, really, trying to come to some sort of synthesis, right? He understood that orthodoxy was such an important part to Russian culture. It was their uniting uh, uh, force during their years fighting against the Mongols and the Turkic peoples and stuff. So it was important to them. It was this sort of national identity, and um, that patriotism around that national identity was really essential to establishing unity in the early Soviet state. And it was clever. It was very clever.
Well,
And they
that's
did
the
the same with
thing.
Muslims too. They really did incorporate Islam into their appealing to the Turkic peoples of the steppes. It's very interesting.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The greatest atheists are those who don't focus on fuck religion. They just focus on building a better society. Yo,
Yeah. So let me help people understand religion through a Marxist lens. Religion can take on many forms. Its class character is truly based off of where it's sourced from. Like the Southern Black Baptist Church is, I believe, a force for good because it was the one thing that these people could unite culturally and create music and unite community wise and defend themselves against racism. And it was a hotbed of desegregation. These Southern Black churches, and this is still a place today where these people gather together. But then you have the normal WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestantism, that is really built into the cultural hegemony of the United States. It's this tool of control and subjugation. And that's there you can see the difference. Really, faith takes on the class character of the state or the community it comes from. And we really need to understand that when we look at religion, you know?
well, well, I also view anti-theism also as a form of classism because think about this: who are the people that a lot of these atheists are attacking? Poor people.
Yep.
It's mostly poor people.
Or you know, yeah, poor people from the third world too. A lot of Muslims.
It gets even worse when you focus on the third world, what they advocate for. They're the biggest shills of the genocide that's going on in the Middle East.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. They're disgustingly racist. And then they'll say, "Well, Islam is a religion, not a race." Yeah, but most of the people who follow it are of color. So you're making criticisms of their cultural backgrounds, not of Islam. You're just being a racist.
And I don't like to say this, but there's some truth that atheism has killed like billions. It isn't too far off, honestly.
In what way?
Oh no, okay, maybe not billions, millions. Okay. I mean, think about all these wars that these atheists support, and the Nazis were they really a religious movement?
They were esoteric.
They seem to be. If you look at their actions, they seem to be anti-religion more than anything. They
Well,
wanted
yeah,
to.
they were anti-human, which in turn goes against most religions, which is about like loving thy neighbor and shit. You
Yeah,
know, so they were very anti-human, and that reflected in their weird esoteric neo-paganism. And they had the veneer of Protestant Christianism and anti-Catholicism, just because that was sort of a uniting force in northern Germany, and that's where the bulk of their support was. So yeah,
if you dig further and further into the rabbit hole, a lot of these atheists support eugenics, which is a
yeah,
form
a lot of
of
them do.
genocide.
Absolutely. And this is just to clarify for people. This isn't like the classic intellectual turned atheist or classic, Marxist during revolutionary times, shrugging off the cultural hegemonic religion in favor of atheism, like someone like Stalin or Lenin or Marx even. This is a different thing. It's almost like shrugging it off for the sake of blood, for the sake of blood. They're like, we can't adhere to this because it says thou shalt not kill. Well, this neo-paganism says that, we should. So let's do that. Because neo-paganism is based off of Christian writings of long lost stories of cultures. Like there's no truth to any of these. That's why they call it neo-paganism. Like they have no roots in their actual history, unlike Islam or Judaism or even Christianity. It's really fucked. And that's why you see so many reactionaries coming out of it, because it's just a way for them to use mysticism and esotericism to advocate for violence and hate.
I know my position isn't popular with regarding atheism. It's just as somebody that was a former atheist, I don't know where I stand at this point. I'm so turned off when
You sound
that
just like a run-of-the-mill agnostic to me.
that's probably what I am. It's just
I believe that agnosticism is the most intellectually honest position, even more than mine. Just because saying I don't know is the only really fair thing that you can say. I don't know if it exists or not, intellectually speaking.
It just I cannot I cannot bring myself to even take on the label of atheism or atheist, whatever you want to call it. Is I know there's good people that are atheists, so I'm not going to say that. So I know a lot of my audience are atheists. You're not bad. I'm not referring to.
I used to be an atheist. Now I'm a deeply religious Jew.
So
yeah.
So I don't think you're bad people. I'm not referring to it. Just based on my personal experience and seeing the fascist undercurrent in the atheist community in the past 10 years has completely turned me off. Like I will never accept atheism as a legitimate ideology. I think it's bullshit. I don't think there is such thing as an atheist.
That's fair enough.
Because these people, what the fuck do you expect to replace the world? What do you expect to replace religion with? Let's say you get what you want. You get rid of all religions. What the fuck do you expect to replace it all with?
They don't understand what it is. They just don't like it because that's the thing. Like, it's a uniting force for many communities and humanity as a whole. Like, we are made up of our traditions. Like, who we are today is made up of everything we've done in the past. And what we should do is be able to synthesize the best of our traditions with historical progress,
Yeah.
and not abandon these things, but uphold these beautiful parts of our history and tradition, and reject the reactionary, horrible, damaging parts of it. And we can be way more nuanced than just throw everything out. No, we should really just try to look deeply and understand where these things come from and how we can make them better, because it is in our hands. Religion is a man-made thing. We don't believe that this world, I mean, me as a Jew, I'm not speaking for all Jews, but I believe our faith is man-made. It's not monolithic. It's a very man-made and thing that has developed over centuries and thousand millennia, actually. And I believe it holds truths, but I believe it holds truths that I'll keep to myself, and I'll let people know if they ask me, but I'm never going to tell anyone otherwise. And people who believe differently than me, they're not condemned to any sort of punishment. We're not any better than you because we believe differently. Actually, on the contrary, we just have a very specific task as the chosen.
Oh yeah,
That's it.
definitely. You are right about that, Louis. You were
Yeah,
definitely right about that, about the
as a
atheist
tool, as a
community
tool.
weaponizing LGBTQ plus.
Yeah, and they weaponized us and also used us in that same realm as, manufacturing consent for imperialism, like they still do it in Iran. Look at these theological people banning LGBT people. Shut the fuck up. Keep your hands off Iran. They've decided their fate. Once imperialism is solved, they can solve their contradictions at home. Right now, they're just trying to survive. So fuck off and leave them alone. Shia, Shia, Shia. Sorry.
What's actually funny is none of these people like pay attention to the anti-LGBTQ, movements and first world fascist countries.
Of course they don't. It's not important to them, man, because the the fact that they see people of the third world determining their own fate outside of what they see as progressive and correct, then it angers them. It makes them angry. How could these lowly people of color say that I'm wrong about the way that they should do things? This is the way these fucking people think. No, they decided their own fate. Now shut the fuck up and keep your business. Stick with your own fucking business. The only time you should be talking about Iran and these other places is in defense of them against imperialism, not the other way around.
I support Assad and I
Me
support Iran. They're not socialists. I don't fucking care. I'm an anti-imperialist. I don't care.
I
America
am.
is the literal devil.
I'm a queer trans Jew communist. They wouldn't like me in Iran, but I support them. I support Hezbollah. I support Hamas. These people wouldn't like me. I don't give a fuck. Justice in the primary condition is more important.
Yeah, I mean, just here's the thing: respect is more important than someone liking you, and
Yes,
it's more important.
absolutely. All I ask is to be treated with respect and dignity. I don't demand anything more or less. I just want it to be treated with the same respect and dignity as everyone else, and then we can concentrate on this fucking super fucked issue, which is imperialism. This thing that we should be focusing our efforts on.
Also, it's context. Why would they would feel that way? I mean, they see the West and they see them weaponizing that against them,
Of
which is
course, there would be skeptical of it.
which gives them even more of a reason to reject it.
Yeah, and and people in different cultures handle this stuff differently. Like China, for example, people would say they're very socially conservative, and I would say they're just more socially private. Um, things like transgender people have existed in Chinese culture for 4,000 years. They still exist. Some of their most like Jing Xing, who actually inspired me to transition, is a former PLA soldier, ballerina, comedian, TV show host, one of the most popular in China. She's a trans woman. She's awesome. And LGBT people are starting to become more and more recognized. They don't have the right to get married yet, but it's not really a big issue because LGBT people, just like everyone else, people keep their sexuality private. LGBT people has always existed in China. Chinese people, whether it's straight sex, gay sex, whatever sex, they just don't like to fucking talk about it. They like to keep that at home. They're just prude. They're not as sexual as Westerners. They say Americans are so sexual. They always talk about sex and all this stuff. They just don't like to talk about it like we do. It's just different. Oh, well. It's not like they hate LGBT people.
I agree.
I have a friend, very close friend, who's a member of the Ba'athist Party, and he's from Aleppo. And he's been through the whole. He had to quit his study. He just started his studies again a couple of years ago, but he just had gotten to his master's program in 2011. Then the war started. He had to leave his home in Aleppo, and then finally he got to come back, and life is starting to come back to normal. He proudly voted for Assad, said the National Progressive Front just earned their vote. He actually voted for the Communist Party member who was running in the National Progressive Front in his district. So, pretty cool. And he won, the Communist Party member. The Communist Party members always win. They're part of the ruling coalition, but like he took videos of the elections and sent them to me. And, I sent him some videos we had over here in the U.S. of the Syrian diaspora voting. And, we saw the result of it. He won in a landslide. It's because Assad earned it. You know what he did? He didn't capitulate to the West. He doubled down and helped defend his country, called solidarity, and took their fate into their own hands. And they are winning the war. And now they just got to get rid of these Turkish proxies in the north, and they've won. The rest of the country is at peace. They have a peace agreement with the Kurds and are doing a new autonomous region out there for them. They're working together and fighting the remaining elements of Daesh. It's over. They lost. Bye-bye. They've lost. Objectively lost. The Syrian people have decided their fate. Fuck off. Y'all lost in Iraq? Look, Iraq's already starting to pull away politically from the U.S. Fuck off. You lost. Iran doesn't want you there. You lost in Korea. Fuck off. You lost in Vietnam. Fuck off. People don't want you, Yankee. Go home.
I agree. Speaking of Yankee, I think another reason why a lot of the Eastern countries are hostile towards the West in terms of when it comes to LGBTQ, I think it's because they see American culture and they see how sexualized it is. I mean,
That's
everything is sexualized.
It really is their fear. You're right. Absolutely. That is their main fear. They don't like this sexualization, and it doesn't really even have to do with children. They just don't like it in general. They think this hypersexualized society is weird. We don't, and that's okay. We live in a different conditions. If you're very sexual, that's amazing.
Yeah, but there's no way they don't see the porn industry in the West, and they don't want that for their country. It's like everything is sexualized. It's like the West sexualizes the LGBTQ community, and it's disgusting. And
you know what they tell you? You know what they tell you when you come into China?
What?
Like, when you come into China and you're a white person, and you come in, they say 3 rules. Don't mess with drugs here. Okay? Don't buy women. Okay? And get registered with your local police station if you stay for a long time. Okay?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Like, that's what they tell you. They're like, don't fuck around with drugs because they hate it because the century of shame brought upon by the opium imperialism and colonialism. And don't buy women because of comfort women. They hate this shit. They hate it. They hate it. What they do if they find sex workers in China is that they take them to vocational schools and train them and get them jobs in regular proletarian society, and they arrest the pimps and johns and put them away for throw away the key. You don't buy sex in China. That's not something you do. You don't look at porn in China. If they catch you doing that,
porn is outlawed. That sounds like a good society to me. No
yes,
porn.
Porn is outlawed. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, porn is disgusting. I mean, porn. I mean, I don't. But I think everybody, that defends the existence of porn, you defend pedophilia because there's so much child porn on the internet.
You can't distinguish how old that person is. You don't know if that was consensual or not. It's anonymous. You don't know if it's consensual or not. You don't know if they're economically coerced. You don't know if that person was trafficked. You don't know if that person's underage. If you consume pornography in that manner, then you are a sick fuck contributing to the production of rape, trafficking, and child abuse. So yeah, good fucking job. Now, if people want to privately share images between each other, or if someone in a capitalist system wants to privately sell their own images to another person to survive, that is fine, I guess. But in a socialist society, that will have no place to exist. The commodification of sex will no longer happen. That's disgusting, and it only leads to the most horrific positions in society. Porn is, I'm going to use a reactionary term, porn is degeneracy. Degeneracy.
I don't see how you could describe it any other way, but there's one thing liberals and conservatives in America will defend is pornography. They will defend the existence of it. I mean,
yeah, I've seen it so many times, and I can't fathom it. Now I'm so sympathetic to people who are economically coerced and have to in order to pay the bills, work in this industry. I'm very sympathetic to them. I believe we should protect them. I believe that we should give them more rights. I believe that we should give them education and training to get out of this, and give them jobs, good jobs, to get out of this position. I believe that they could do a lot of good for the community outside of that place. So many people have potential. What I think we should do is prosecute Johns and pimps and shut down anyone who distributes it, facilitates it, or buys it, or even consumes it in any capacity, because frankly, it's disgusting.
It is. And honestly, if these anti-LGBTQ people really cared about protecting children, why aren't they out banning pornography?
Right. And, for the longest time, the only people who'd be on our side banning pornography right now are the religious folks. Like in America, the liberals love this shit. They love the commodification of sex. It's such a big industry, of course they would. And, things like Pornhub finally getting busted for child trafficking, and yet their website is, if I'm not mistaken, their website is still up right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how is that? And the United States has the hubris to shut down foreign countries' own websites, seize their own websites. They seized Iran websites and shut them down, but they let porn exist.
Yeah.
Wow. I just don't get it.
Porn only exists in a degenerate society. I know it's something reactionaries use, but there's no other way to describe it. I mean,
it's correct. That's the correct position to have.
I mean, 20 years ago, you didn't see people with porn addictions like you do now.
Yeah, and what do you think that does to like the mind of people when they see like every single video is about the youngest looking girls, shaved, the youngest looking girls, petite. They're looking for the most childlike looking people. How do you think that affects the mind of people who look at that all the time and then go out into the world? What is their attraction towards? It's not towards, like this is the kind of sick culture, and like how boys grow up learning that, oh, this is how sex should be, right? And this porn image of it, and then that's how they fucking treat women in sex. Holy fuck! Like, that's insane. That's insane for me to think about how many women probably in this world have never experienced like healthy adult sex before, based purely on the fact that these kids coming out of porn culture. It's disgusting.
Japan's even worse than the United States in this regard.
I believe that.
It's holy shit. Man, the topics have fucking changed. We went from ultra leftism, atheism, porn. Jesus, I can't think of anything else.
Well, we could talk about Jesus. I'm just kidding.
Jesus, I have no
boxes, right?
I don't have an opinion about Jesus other than the fact that Jesus might have probably did exist as a human being, but that's about it.
Oh, Jesus was a real dude for sure. No doubt. He was a priest of the Pharisaic tradition. That's why you see him always in the New Testament criticizing Pharisees, because he was one of them. You criticize the people you're closest to. But yeah, he was a Pharisee. Typical guy, typical normal Jewish guy, just eventually got some really weird ideas. This was during an age when the Jewish people truly thought that the Messianic age could happen at any time. And so a small but significant portion of Jews during that time started following Jesus, thinking he was going to be the Mashiach. And he thought he was the Mashiach, but he was very much a Jew in the sense that he said, follow the God's law. There's no law but God's law. You can't change it. Or you can't add on to it. You can't subtract to it, which Christians ignore conveniently. He never claimed to be the Son of God. He was a man. This is a Jewish perspective, by the way. If you're a Christian, I'm sorry, but Islam understands him as a prophet of God. We don't. We just understand him as an eccentric Pharisee who was one of tens of thousands of Jews who were crucified by the Roman state. So yeah. And the reason it became popular wasn't because of Jesus himself. It was because of a little man named Saul of Tarsus, also known as Saint Paul, the evangelizer, who said, actually, you don't have to follow Hashem's laws. You don't have to get circumcised. You don't have to keep kosher. You don't have to keep Shabbat. You can just believe that Jesus died for your sins, and bada bing, bada boom, you're a Christian. And it was appealing. They said eternal protection from eternal damnation, eternal paradise. Boom, it spread like wildfire, and that's why it caught on. And evangelizing is something that's a part of Christianity. Evangelizing is a sin for us Jews. We're not supposed to evangelize people. Now, we teach people about Hashem when they ask us, right? But we're not allowed to evangelize just by the merits of our own words and actions. If someone wants to become a Jew, they can.
Yeah. You know one of the most ridiculous things that Frager University talked about? They said Jesus was a capitalist. Even though
Kenneth Frager is a Jew. He's a modern Orthodox Jew too, just like I am. But he is a part of the Zionist clique, of course.
What makes him a hypocrite is he platformed a Holocaust denier.
Yeah, the Zionists amongst the Orthodox Jews and the Jews in general who understand Zionism to be anti-Jewish, we consider these people to be abject failures to the Jewish culture and faith, who are completely abandoning their duties to Hashem and their community and the world. So, yeah, if you're a Zionist, you're anti-Jewish. If you're a Zionist, you're anti-human. So fuck you if you're a Zionist.
What do you think of Ben Shapiro?
My peer counselor is a Jew, and we were talking about Judaism, and finally I was trying to, probe, find out if she likes Zionism or not, and she was doing the same to me. We're both trying to figure it out. Like, are you cool? You cool? And we're like, fuck Zionism, finally, after it all said and done. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful that being comfortable around a Jew and being anti-Zionist is so hard these days. She's like, I know. It was great. Gotta love it.
What do you think of Ben Shapiro?
Much in the same way I see him as a Dennis Prager Zionist, and he, like me, he's a modern Orthodox Jew. But I'm just presenting to people that us modern Orthodox come in all shapes and sizes, like Comrade Net and I, and that we're not all like these reactionary, pro-Zionist, anti-human people. They're
I don't
definitely, yeah.
I don't understand how anyone could take Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager seriously. They're fucking clowns.
Well, it's junk food. I forgot who I heard say that. Who did I hear say that? It's junk food for reactionaries. That's what it is. It's just like, these people will confirm my biases. I
It's
can
just
relax.
nobody would watch Prager University if they didn't fucking have their fucking videos shoved down everyone's throat through advertising.
Yeah,
Their
yeah.
videos are fucking boring. I don't think that as many people watch them as you would think.
Well, the only reason they get views is from the ads.
Nobody
Like,
would be watching their videos otherwise.
yeah, like even if you can skip the ad, like the fact that you're on it for more than 10 seconds, if it's like more than 10 seconds, then it counts as a view. So they get people who don't click skip in time, that counts as a view. They get people who accidentally click on it, that counts as a view. They advertise it everywhere, shove it down people's throats. They get views out the wazoo because of that. It's all bought views. It's not organic like you or I. Or
It's
any of us in the communist field, really. Like, we really have to grind to get anywhere. Like, I've been on here for about 5 years, I think, on YouTube, and I just recently broke 1K. It's a grind. It really is, and I know it was a grind for you to get to like 1.67K. You have now almost 2K. Like, it took
I'm not proud of why that happened. I only have the boost I have now is because back in early 2018, there was the Last Jedi backlash was so intense that I ranted about that movie quite a bit, and that's where most of my subs come from.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my subs, I think they came over a period of time. I had a few influx of subs though. One big one was when I went on Paul Moran's show, and I got like 300 subscribers. But he deleted that a long time ago. And I think I got quite a few after Jason just randomly starts promoting my videos. He does that sometimes, which I love and appreciate. Man, God bless him. And I've gotten a lot of influx from hanging out with people like you, and hanging out with just different people in different communities. Because if you insulate yourself in one community and you don't sort of like try to branch out a little bit, you're gonna get stuck. What I love about your channel, Dark, is that I watch your Star Wars stuff more avidly, actually, and I love your political stuff. Don't get me wrong; we're actually more similar and in a lot of ways than people know. But like your Star Wars stuff, I love it. It got me back into the EU again. I started like I reread Darth Bane and the Revan book, and going back to the Thrawn. I'm going back to the OG Thrawn trilogy, and like I'm back into. I downloaded on my phone the mobile version of KOTOR and KOTOR 2. Like, it was because of your channel I got back into it again. I love it. I love it so
Well,
much.
it's nice to know that I made a difference. It's just ever since the EU gate happened, I feel like I've been isolated from the Star Wars community for the most part, which
And you know what? That's okay.
it doesn't bother me really that much because I knew taking a stand against the reactionaries in the Star Wars fandom would probably cost me all my connections.
Hey, but what separates you from a liberal is shirking off your individualism for what is a greater good, a
Yeah.
collective. That's
Well,
what it's all about.
the thing
We
is,
make sacrifices, don't we?
yeah, we do. In 20, okay, here's the thing regarding what my boost for my channel. anybody that watches my channel in 2018 would know that I was going through a transitional period from, you know,
I know all
liberalism
about
to Marxism.
transition. Hey, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Well, I was just going through that transitional period, and so I had some problematic takes back then. But 2019 and 20, I made a lot of strides that I don't know if I would recognize my 2018 self, actually.
I find it hard to believe how short of amount of time you've been into like serious Marxism. But the reason y'all should actually listen to Dark and that he actually knows a lot about what he's talking about is because he puts in the fucking work. He hits the books. That's the thing, is that he's really good faith about things. And what I've learned about you is that if you don't really know what's going on, you don't really talk about it. A lot like Haas, the reason I respect Haas so much. But if you know something, you've researched it before and make sure you clearly understand it. And the first time I noticed that is whenever you went, you talked to B level, like you haven't even read the book, dude. And I'm like, that's so.
Settlers, oh my god, the book that triggers so many people.
Oh,
Like,
settlers, oh, settlers.
I don't
I've
understand
read it.
why anybody gets so triggered when
I know,
the
like,
untold
right?
people
I've
is
read it. It's actually a pretty good insight to the 1980s North American unipolar burgeoning age of neoliberalism. It's a pretty good insight to the American condition, but it's wrong in a lot of places, undialectical in a lot of places. It's interesting, but much like what Jason said and what you said, I feel like that why do we need settlers when we have the wretched of the earth? Read it if you want to talk about it. Um, I wouldn't say it's recommended reading, but I would say if you're going to say anything about it, definitely read it first.
well, it's like, how are you going to say this book is reactionary and liberal when I argue that Howard Zinn's book is actually a better book than that book, and it isn't even written by a Marxist.
Yeah, Howard Zinn's book is really good. Yeah.
It's way better than my issue with Jay Sakai's book is I felt it was too emotional at points.
Yeah, it was very emotionally charged, which is part of the appeal of it too. Almost like I got gassed up reading it. I almost, like the first time I read it, it really like it was in the age when I was starting to. So there was a period of time where I guess I considered myself a third worldist. I just didn't call myself one. Um, I've actually hidden some videos from that time about me being very wrong about things. Um,
Well, I'm a third worldist from the Leninist perspective because I can't. I know technically your third worldism is mostly from spawns from Maoism, but since I haven't studied Mao enough to be to consider myself a Maoist third worldist, it'd be dishonest to label myself as such.
yeah, I don't. I think third worldism is not the same as Maoism. Third worldism.
Well, like I said, I come from the Leninist tradition, not the Maoist tradition.
Interestingly enough, um, after you see, I did one on I did a video on anarchism. I'm doing one on Maoism, and a week from my one on Maoism, I'm going to do one on third worldism.
That should be interesting.
Yeah, it should be pretty fucking interesting. And what I'm doing in all these videos, you'll find, is I'm making an appeal to Marxist Leninists from a Marxist Leninist about these things. And what it is about all of them is an appeal to understand these things through a new and updated lens, an honest lens, and also in the lens of a multi-bullet movement. And I think that um, people are not going to be too happy when I tell them that many of their ideas that they have today were given to them by third worldists, whether they like it or not. I don't think they're going to like that. I don't think they're going to like the fact that I'm going to say that third worldists have discovered things about imperialism that no one else has. I don't think they're going to like that.
Well,
And so it should be interesting.
I have no issue with people criticizing third worldism as long as it's done in good faith, and I haven't seen that many people give a good faith argument against it.
I don't have a good faith argument against third
Well,
world.
Well,
third
I'm not
world.
saying you do, but I'm saying
Yeah,
what I've seen from other people. Like most people push the narrative that third worldism means we do nothing. That's so stupid because no communist advocates doing nothing, especially third
right.
worldists.
They misunderstand when you say that at the moment there's not revolutionary potential. You're not saying that there will never be revolutionary potential. And you're not saying that these conditions won't change. People think that when you say one thing, that this is how it has to be forever. What you're saying is that the primary contradiction has to be solved before we can ever think about starting the construction of any sort of socialism in the United States or any sort of revolution for that matter. Because
Well,
as imperialism exists, we can't do it. We the first world is this is a little bit where disagreements come in, so I'm not going to continue.
well,
um,
well. The thing about third world is a lot of people that criticize third worldism don't understand. Most us third worldists, we don't agree on. We don't have a uniting, you know,
it's not a
stand.
monolith.
It's not.
Third worldists are about as monolithic as Jews, which is not at all.
Like here's an example. I'm not. One of my comrades thinks that every imperialist power is equally as bad as America, and he actually doesn't, but you know what I mean. He thinks they're all the problem, and honestly, I do not think it's a good idea to push for a war between the United States and China because I feel like it's playing with fire. That's where I stand. I'm not against dismantling the imperialist power. But for me, China, I'm not concerned with China.
China doesn't want to go to war.
Uh,
That's not what anyone who has studied the new global strategy and the new global order of Xi Jinping thought knows the reason why China is so careful not to cause armed conflict, why they're so careful to advocate for peace, why their method they have chosen isn't the classical method of the past, which is supporting armed revolution and openly and aggressively standing against it. They're not aggressive, they're defensive, and they have their reasons for this. And if y'all want to go check it out, go, read The Governance of China, all 3 volumes. You'll get a pretty good idea of their Marxist justification, their dialectical justification for doing what they do geopolitically. Whether you agree with it or not, that's a whole different story.
well,
But you can really figure out why they do what they do. And it makes so much more sense. You're like, oh, okay. Now that I understand why you do this, I can make a good faith, analysis of this whole situation.
honestly, the thing about China is I'm not scared of China. I'm scared of America because
You have no
which
reason to be scared of China.
which country has fucking Zionists in the government? Which country has
Which
fucking
country has troops in almost in almost every inch of this globe? Which country has started wars again and again? Which country has done coups again and again? Which country has toppled governments? Which country has invaded others? I mean, there's a clear fatty here.
yeah. I know I'm in the minority when it comes to my third worldist colleagues and Maoists, but America is the only enemy that matters in my eyes. It's the only one that matters.
Well, I tell you now, if the Western capitalist hegemonic powers disappeared, the Chinese would dismantle the markets and profits as indicators tomorrow. They don't like them. And if y'all read about the system, they really talk about them like a necessary evil, as a temporary thing. They do not like that these things exist. They see them as a temporary measure while the global hegemony of the market and profits exists. And that's why they use it as an indicator in order to be able to produce the correct amount to be able to trade on the market. Otherwise, their value wouldn't be based on the market when they put it on the market, so they wouldn't know how much to produce. It's just a way to know and indicate how much they're producing based on the production of other countries in the world. It doesn't mean that the productive forces are in the hands of private companies. It means that they use things like profits as an indicator. Like when they say there's a Chinese billionaire, for example, that is just indicated by a stock percentage that he doesn't actually own. He has no access to that wealth. It's under the purview of the 5-year plan. You can't do anything outside of the purview of the 5-year plan. And these companies that exist are either state-run, worker-run, or if they are privately run, they are a temporary lease from the government, and all of their profits and stocks and everything that are used as indicators are not in the hands of these people. But these people are called billionaires. Like Jack Ma, for example, is called a billionaire because the stocks of the Alibaba company that trades on the international market have indicated that's how much he would be worth if he were to be able to access and liquidate those stocks that are used as an indicator. But they're not. They're the people's stocks, which is the funniest thing I've just said in my life. The people's stocks, the people's sneaker. I'm sorry, but yeah. So just to give a little bit of clarification on how that works, like China doesn't allow for the hoarding of wealth in individuals in the same way that the West does. When people say Chinese billionaires, these people don't have access to that billions in the slightest. It's used as an indicator. And they don't even like using it as an indicator. They do not like it at all. And so just because global capitalism is dominating, they believe they can use this new global strategy to push the United States out of these places that they've been parasitically abusing for so long in the West, that move them out of these places and build alliances with them in mutual trade agreements as opposed to parasitic ones, and to give them an out from the hegemony of the West. That is their strategy. And eventually they hope that will weaken imperialism enough to where that, eventually imperialism is done. That is their strategy. I don't agree with it completely, actually. I don't agree with the peaceful approach. At this point, maybe the peaceful approach, because mutually assured destruction, that's sort of where they're coming from. They don't want mutually assured destruction with nukes and everything. So I understand where they're coming from. I don't agree with all of it. I really don't. But I think for people to make an honest assessment of what's going on in China and why they do what they do, they really have to start understanding the fundamentals of how it all works, so they can have a better idea of, do I agree with the way they do this? No. Is it capitalism? I don't, no, it's not, because there are no individuals that own the means of production. There are no bourgeois individuals that own the means of production. So it's hard to say. It's hard to make that claim, especially when productive forces are a big part of how we understand economic systems. So that's just my 2 cents. I know I've talked a lot. Jeez.
Well, like I said, my position is in the minority of the communist, community. Mine is in the minority that America is the only enemy that matters. And to me, nothing terrifies me more than a white supremacist Mormon fascist state potentially happening. Nothing terrifies me more than that.
It's terrifying. Yeah. That's a big fear, honestly. The United States, we have 3 options at the end of the day. Either we take down imperialism and we build socialism, or we get fascism, or third, which isn't really any better, we go to barbarism. The classic socialism or barbarism. Well, now, because that was a pre-fascist book, it's socialism, fascism, or barbarism. What choice do you like?
I think it's more socialism or extinction, because there is no victory for fascism other than extinction. There is no victory.
Yeah. Well put. I agree. Socialism or extinction. It's at that point. You're correct. Absolutely.
And that's what scares me. And I don't think these communists, I'm referring to those who want reform, understand just how dangerous things are, and how we're on borrowed time here. And we need to be prepared for the worst, because the fascists, they know what's coming. And I just feel like a lot of these people are acting like children. We don't underestimate our enemies, because when they have the chance, they will wipe us all out, and they could do it.
Yeah, I'm afraid. What I'm really afraid of is eco-fascism on the grounds
Ego.
of Malthusianism, wiping out populations to save the planet.
That's what scares me, because
That's terrifying because it's legit. Once you start seeing the right advocate for environmentalism, which is already starting to happen, that's when you need to be afraid. Because that's when they're going to bring their Malthusian ideology, which is, when I say the right, I mean the Democrats and the Republicans. That their Malthusian ideology is the idea that overpopulation exists, which it doesn't. That's a myth. Um, Societies like China have learned how to build vertical and take great advantage of their space and still have less environmental degradation, less crime, better standard of living than many other places. And what people need to understand is that this idea of overpopulation came from a dude called Malthus in the 1700s. And this dude literally advocated for like the killing of poor people and brown people to save the planet from overpopulation. That's where this idea comes from, this eco-fascist idea. It's dangerous, very dangerous.
It sounds self-destructive to me. That's what it sounds like, because
Ain't that?
what they're advocating for is wiping out 90%, 99% of the population.
Yeah, yeah, they are, and that's the hubris of the ruling class, y'all.
And I don't see, people taking it lying down and waiting and letting themselves get annihilated. Human beings
Oh
don't do
hell
that.
no! Oh hell no! The organic is a revolutionary process, or the revolution is an organic process. And what is more organic than anything is the instinct for humanity to preserve itself and to survive from an individual to a collective level. That's why we naturally come together to work together to survive. It's a part of our condition, the human condition. And
Look, question I do have is, let's do the fascists have a solution after they've succeeded? Because it doesn't seem like they do. It just seems like they have tunnel vision,
yeah,
which is what all reactionary do is, okay, you got your ethno fascism. Now what?
well, it's an emotional. Fascism is not a logical or ideology. It's an emotional ideology. Very
Yeah,
much
it
is.
is.
It's an emotional reaction uh, to something. It's fear of change. It's wanting to keep position. I mean, it's the same. If we believe it's capitalism in decay, I believe that is one way fascism can arise, but I don't believe that it's exclusive. But then we understand that it's the last saving grace of the irrationality of capitalist production. There's nothing rational about fascism. It's an irrational ideology.
21st century fascism is essentially like the final stage of what capitalism is going to end
Mhm.
up. Capitalism will not
Yeah,
survive the 21st century.
absolutely not. Either well, either capitalism won't survive or the earth won't. But either way, capitalism will be gone. Um,
Well,
so
I don't think the human race is going to be gone, and at the end of the century. It's going to take a lot longer than that.
I don't believe that either. But the point of no return is what I'm worried about, right? Like, yeah, we can live on for a little bit longer, but once we come to the point to where we can't reverse what we have done, or let me rephrase that, what capitalist production has done to this planet, then that's just the most terrifying thing. It's like, because on a religious level, on a like what I believe in my heart is that humanity will reach a messianic age. There is no end of times. I believe that the messianic age is an age of spiritual unity and communism, and I believe that that will happen. But like with all of my heart, it's something that's promised to us. And so the fact that it could be the point of no return to where our planet could be destroyed is so devastating to me on its foundation, on foundational level. So it's just like for me, it's like, why are y'all not doing anything? We can't
Well,
expect to be saved by anyone but ourselves.
well, I do believe we can reverse what we've done in climate change. It's just gonna
Well,
require centuries of hard work.
yeah. Well, we can see that there's ways to reverse pollution that many countries, not just China, but many countries are doing. Like when Beijing used to be horrid, awful, and it still is pretty bad. But whenever I went there, I have pictures. I'll show it sometime. Um, it's just clear as day. The clear, beautiful air. They've figured out ways to literally pull, extract uh, the pollution from the air and turn it into bricks, and they're using it to build homes. Homes for free for people. Turning pollution into homes. What a wonderful fucking idea.
Or what about shrinking deserts?
Desert genocide. Love it.
It's
Um,
like we have the potential to save the planet. It's just the thing is we have to we it will take long centuries of struggle. In fact, I would argue what Caleb Maupin's position on there's no limit to growth doesn't address the problem. I think we need to stay on Earth for at least 100 years, if not more, after we get rid of capitalism before we even consider space exploration.
well, I don't think true like call me a Trekkie if you want, but I don't think we can really do like get the warp drive, so to say, quote unquote, that technological milestone, warp travel in Star Trek for anyone who knows. I don't think we get to that point until we reach communism, until we reach true post-scarcity and are able to dedicate massive resources to this because of this post-scarce society. And I think that space travel should be something that is interesting now, should be a scientific curiosity, but not a priority. I don't think. I think we're past that Cold War era. Look how big my dick is. Look how big my rocket is.
I feel like we need to focus on saving our planet and like
Yeah.
healing our planet because if what China is doing shows that we can do it. We can
Yeah.
we can reverse climate change. The problem is the Western mindset. Just consumerism is the biggest obstacle, and I
Mm.
don't know if most of the Western population is going to accept, you know, a, a world where they can't get the latest commodity all the time because how bad it is for the environment.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt, no doubt. And that's where, harken back to much earlier, that's where this whole idea of re-educating people, not re-educating, but starting education differently, in this post-revolutionary society. Like, we have to start teaching people from a young age to, break out of these ideas, find value in things outside of commodification and find value of things outside of consuming. Like, there's so much we can create and do and produce and build outside of, the new iPhone, you know?
Yeah, it's just
I've had my fucking same Chinese phone since like I don't know, like 2016 or something like that. It's an Oppo Oppo R15, and it's like their fake Apple, but it costs like 10% of an Apple. It works better than an Apple phone, an iPhone.
I've I've had the same piece of I've been getting a new phone for I've had 4 new phones in the past 5 years. And
That's
it
crazy.
feels like every phone I've gotten has been worse than the last. It's
Buy Chinese. Yeah, one company that is very good and exists localized here for the USA for a lot of y'all that can get this. You wouldn't be able to get my phone because it's not really localized for here. I'm lucky that what I have is able to even function. I can't even use a lot of services on my phone because it's localized to China. But OnePlus is a Chinese phone company that is localized here for the United States, and a lot of carriers have them. They're significantly cheaper than Samsung or iPhones, and they work amazing. And they're not built to go obsolete. They actually, like, the software updates make them better. And the same with my phone. Like, every time I get a software update, it feels like a new fucking phone. And when you get a software update on an old iPhone or an old Samsung, it fucking throttles it and slows it down. So it's just a different sort of world. They don't build their shit to be obsolete. They, you know.
Well, I think Maxwell Glover, I think, brought up a point about, you know, regarding deserts being an ecosystem.
Mm. Right, right. What they're trying to stop is desertification, right? And they're taking back land that was once arable farmland and bringing it back. They don't want to destroy the entire desert. You know, that's not what we're looking to do. Like you said, it's an ecosystem. It's a keystone part of our entire planet's, organic system and natural system, and it's, a part of it. And there's, you know, beautiful animals and plants in these places and cultures that are born out of them. We can't destroy it, but we definitely can stop it from expanding. Like the Sahara is expanding. I know these sub-Saharan states are getting more and more intruded by the desert, and what could be better for these places that rely so much on food imports from abroad than to be able to be food self-sufficient by reclaiming land and making it arable. These are things that could really, give the opportunity for countries to take their fates into their own hands, sort of like what Burkina Faso did back in the 80s under Thomas Sankara. They were able to become food self-sufficient, everyone vaccinated, education, all these amazing things, building roads, and just able to become, sovereign and determine their own fates without being told what to do. That's what we need to, advocate for in our position here in the Imperial Core is for any moment that these countries are trying to advocate for their own self-determination and the West is fighting back at that. We need to stand on the side of those trying to advocate for their self-determination,
I
because
agree.
yeah, and like the sovereignty is freedom. For people to determine the fate of their own peoples and communities, that's freedom. And that's what we need to give to them. We'll not give to them. They will give it to themselves. They'll take it for themselves. It's theirs to take. We need to give them our solidarity, is what I mean.
I agree. Oh God. Oh God, I know what I stand is talking about. It's such I don't know how you feel about this, but I think the anti-vax shit is getting ridiculously out of control. Like
it,
having
it it's
fucking
wild. It's wild.
having a fucking restaurant like basically discriminating against people who are vaccinated. It's like, how the fuck can you prove that you're vaccinated or not? How? How do you know
You
the
get it.
person who's vaccinated isn't just gonna lie?
Well, we do have you do have the CDC card if you get vaccinated.
Yeah, but who's to say they're going to reveal that they got it?
They don't have to, right?
Yeah,
Unless it's a private business, of course, you can
it's
refuse service.
I don't know. I just
But
think this irrationality against vaccines is getting ridiculous, and I had patients at first like, you know what, some skepticism is not too bad regarding vaccines, but now it's getting ridiculous.
yeah, I have no problem with people being like, that was piped through pretty quick without much testing. I get that. I have my vaccine. It's I got the Moderna one. I'm fine. I wish I could have got Sinovac, but
I would have
can't.
rather have gotten I'd rather get the Russian or Chinese vaccine. I don't trust the American one.
Yeah, private companies suck. I would have rather had a publicly created vaccine, but I got mine for free. Fortunately, in the community next to ours, they were giving out free vaccines at this place,
Well,
so I got mine. I didn't feel so bad after it. I felt pretty tired, but
well,
and my arm was a bit sore, but I know a lot of my parents had a bad reaction to it, but now I
I'm
feel fine, and I'm
I'm
still
just
walking around with a mask. Like there's a Delta variant. Like I don't trust that. I mean I don't trust this fucking pandemic. I don't want
ha,
to die when I could
ha,
prevent it.
have you noticed how they stopped reporting on the death toll?
Of course they have.
It's like it has to be in the millions by now.
Oh, it's been in the millions for a while. Um, yeah, for sure.
It's
Um,
like how they gonna hide this?
yeah,
Honestly,
like in places like Cuba and China, things have gone back to normal like almost a year now. Like I was talking to some of my friends from China, and one of them just got married, and I was like, "Oh, congrats! Is everything back to normal over there?" Yeah, yeah, everything's back to normal now. People still, wear masks like they always have because in Asia in general, people when they're not feeling well or they go into like public buses and stuff, a lot of people just wear masks anyway. That's just a culture thing. So when it started happening here and people started complaining about it, I was laughing my ass off because it had only been a year since I'd come back from China when it was just so normal to see it anyway. And like I'm like, why are y'all getting upset? It's like a fashion statement. Come on.
honestly, I don't see myself not wearing a mask at this point because
Oh, I wear mine
2020 was
everywhere,
like
bro.
2020 was the year I only got sick one time last year because I wore a mask. It's the
Yeah.
most healthy I've ever been. It's like I think I'd feel safer with a mask on, and
Well, it's
especially
just when you're in public, it just in general, I think it's a good place to do that. It's because public is dirty.
I
Let
just
me
think
tell you.
Americans, I just think they're entitled and spoiled.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. You can't tell me what to do. But I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but it's like sort of for the betterment of everyone. Can you please do it? No, 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 no.
well, if that to be real, the American leaders, let's be honest, they're fucking stupid and idiotic. Like if they ran America in the 1930s and 40s, the country would have collapsed.
Yeah, it's kind of wild because we're not like to be clear to everyone, we're not saying that the people of the past were any better. What we're saying is that they were intelligent people, right? But now there's just so many people like in government who legitimately just couldn't find their way out of a paper bag if their life depended on it.
It's,
And they get
that
elected. They get elected just to saying controversial shit. It's weird. It's really
Nancy Pelosi has been in power even when my grandmother was in her late 20s. That's fucking ridiculous.
that is ridiculous. I didn't know she's been around for that long, but she's always been around since I've been conscious of politics in
My
America.
dad, my parents were in their early teens when she got into power, when she was in politics. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, my grandma was in her late 20s. My mom and my dad were in their early teens. Like, what the hell?
And people do make their lives politics.
And let's be real, all none of these leaders are capable of actually saving America. They're too
No,
short.
probably not.
They're too stupid and narrow-minded to see that basic concessions are necessary if you want to preserve your state. That's the beauty of capitalism. That capitalists, at least in the modern day, don't understand how their system works. That in order to actually preserve the
No.
system, you have to compromise.
You know who understood that? FDR.
Yeah, and the fascists hated his guts because of it.
The communists even allied with him because of it over this topic. Well, not just that. At first, they did it because it was the Great Depression. Anything was better, right? And that's what they're coming. And then it was the United Front against fascism during the war. But eventually, with Harry Truman being chosen as the vice president over the nominally socialist, forget his name, Wallace, from before. Yeah.
He was a
Um,
piece of shit, Harry Truman. He was, oh
yeah,
god, I fucking despise him.
he's the mastermind of the Korean War.
I think he's one of the most evil presidents this country has ever had.
He started the Cold War. He's diabolically evil. Yeah, definitely
And
dropped nukes on Japan, which wasn't necessary. He
and
just
not to
wanted to,
mention, he said if the Soviets were winning, we help the Nazis. If the Nazis are winning, we help the Soviets.
yep.
Yeah, the guy was a fascist and an anti-Semite.
Yeah, he was. Just a horrible piece of shit. And I truly believe that maybe the Cold War would have turned out differently if, because if it would have been Henry Wallace who became president after FDR died, and he was like friendly with the Soviet Union and shit. Imagine how differently things would have gone. That would have been interesting, to say the least.
I don't think he would have lived. The CIA would have allowed him to be president.
That's true. There was already, God bless Smedley Butler for stopping the coup, fascist coup in the 30s, the one that George Bush's grandpa was a part of, actually.
They would have assassinated him even if he did become president. So I don't think there was any
I
possibility.
believe, yeah, especially during that day and age. Yeah, definitely.
He would have been assassinated. It is like I just don't see any other way. Maybe if the CIA never existed, which is never possible, which is not possible, and the FBI did not exist, possibly. But that's just wishful thinking. If we're going by dialectic and historical materialism, there's no way he could have be able to do that much.
Yeah, and if he would have been continued with his friend, the reason he didn't get the nomination is because he wanted friendly relations with the USSR. Just a few years before that, an amazing documentary film that everyone should watch called Mission to Moscow, an American-made film, American government film, showing the Soviet Union in a positive light during World War II. Isn't that wild? And it was during that time, and it's so wild to think about just how everything changed under Truman. Everything, and like you said, I think that in the post-war world, that this friendliness would have never lasted, and that he would have been eventually like impeached for treason or some shit like that, or killed. But it's still interesting to think, what if? It's not really important, but it's like, I wonder if.
Well, the Cold War would have been different.
Oh yeah,
undeniably. It just the circumstances probably would have been different if he was president instead of Truman.
Yeah, but we can't play with what ifs. We have been dealt these cards by the history of the world, and we have to really fix our shit. I always say that, before y'all start trying to dictate to what people in the global South do with their countries, we should really try to fix our shit first, because we don't have a lot of room to talk.
I agree, considering the fact that America has always had a fascist current in its culture and in its government, and we have no room to talk. In fact, we have so much things against us that we need a cultural revolution more than any country. America is like at least 100 years behind its European, brethren in terms of culture.
Yeah, I mean what is American culture, right? I mean, I can identify what French culture is. I can identify what Italian culture is. I can certainly identify these sorts of cultures, or Irish culture in Europe, right, from other fair-skinned people. But what's American culture? I don't know. I know that there's a Black culture in America. I know that there's a Latino culture in America. I don't know about much of an American culture outside of like when you go abroad, right? And you say, "What do you know America for?" We know American food is hamburgers, McDonald's, cheeseburger. We know Hollywood. We know Nike. That's what they say. They're not talk. They talk about anything that's commodified. When people are asked about China, they don't talk about the commodities they produce. They talk about like, oh, China has the Great Wall of China. They have Cantonese and Mandarin. Their language is hard to learn. That's like this, when you talk about these other places, it's not in the same way that you talk about the United States. It's like, what American culture, right? What are you talking about?
Even the British have have a culture unlike America.
Yeah,
You
which
could
is
define British culture, which honestly, if we're gonna say what America is or what,
it's an
I'd
Anglo culture, right?
I just see America as an offshoot of English culture, but
Yeah, it's Angloism. As Haas says, the Anglo box. It's exactly what it is.
it's just when you compare the state of the world, which is why I'm saying it's very important if you want to understand why white supremacy is so prominent in America more than other European countries. You got to understand the historical context. What was going on in the late um 18th century. You got to
Well,
understand that the context of that.
well, in the late 18th century in Europe, it was a dawn of a radical revolutionary era. Things like things like constitutional monarchies and the French Republic were arising. Slavery, things like slavery, were beginning to be abolished. But then we look at America, which was white landowners who relied on slaves to provide them with their wealth. They didn't like that. It's very distinct. It lasted for how many more years? Four
Almost
score and
almost a
7
century.
years.
Almost a century.
Yeah, four score and 7 years ago. Almost a century after it was already being abolished by the Euro contemporaries, right?
Jared Home does a great book on this very subject called the Counter Revolution of 1776. I recommend
Interesting.
I recommend anybody who to read that book because it gives context of what was happening at the time. Slave revolts were happening constantly. It was
Mm.
getting to the point where it wasn't profitable anymore to keep slavery. That's the reason it was abolished in the first place.
Right? That's a fact. It was no longer a viable. It was no longer profitable or viable. But why did the United States ruling class cling to it for so long? We have to recognize and understand why this is. And well, we know what it's resulted in. It's resulted in the most, as you said, the most evil form of white supremacy that has ever existed on the human earth, and so evil that the Nazis modeled themselves off of it and committed genocide modeled off of it. So
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
you can't there's nothing more American than Nazism.
there's nothing more American than genocide and Lebensraum. I mean,
And
what
what
is it?
American fascism. What would the American founding fathers have supported? Would they have supported Hitler's fascism or Mussolini's fascism? It's quite obvious which one they would support.
The ethno-fascism for sure.
Yeah, they would have supported Hitler. Now, I'm not as familiar with Mussolini's
It wasn't.
fascism.
It wasn't. It wasn't ethno-fascism, but it was very nationally chauvinistic. Like national chauvinism. Yeah, Italian chauvinism.
It's just that's just the thing. America has always been culturally backwards. You know, things that were a norm a century ago in other European countries took 100 years almost for them to become the norm.
In
Here
1973, it finally became legal in all states of the United States for interracial couples to be married. 1973. And we include Canada in this context too when it comes to this stuff. It wasn't until what was it, 1995, the residential schools were closed. All of them were closed. The ones where we're finding piles of dead bodies. The ones that liberals are having crocodile tears for.
what about Europe? How long did that take for it to happen in Europe?
For them to what? Uh,
Interracial couples.
oh, I'm pretty sure it varied, and it actually was probably during the civil rights era um, of the 60s and 70s as well.
If it weren't for the
And
presence of the Soviet Union, it would have taken even longer, if not at all.
yeah, the same with the capitalist concessions to the working class, any concessions that they gave. It wouldn't like. Why do you think that after the Soviet Union was illegally dissolved, that even the Social Democrats all abandoned their social democracy for neoliberalism? Because they didn't have to live up to the standard of socialism anymore to buy off people. It was no longer necessary for them to live up to the standard of living in the Soviet Union. Now it was, they could, austerity, boom, injected. And that's how it literally, the illegal dissolution of the Soviet Union was a reactionary reversal of history. It set us back. It did.
It was very. I'm not going to lie. It was very stupid of the West to not to do that, at least strategically, because they didn't take China into account.
Oh, they didn't expect it. Um, they thought, oh, look, they're opening up to us, blah 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 blah. Oh no, what it was like whenever you say, "Oh, hi," and you got like your fingers crossed behind your back with a smile on your face. Hi, don't fucking invade us. We're not ready for this shit yet. And
Yeah,
then once they build up, now they say, "Well, actually, you can't tell us what to fucking do anymore. We're gonna geopolitically now they have a say now they can't be pushed around." And so it's a whole different ballgame now. And it's a multipolar world again. It's no longer the unipolar world of the '90s. Russia is a pole that's going up. It's not socialist, but it's a pole that's coming up, and China's a pole that's coming up. And it's no longer dominated by Western hegemony. These new forces exist,
I
and it's interesting to see how the United States is desperately clinging to their power where they're losing it.
I personally don't think the European Union is going. It's going to collapse with the United States.
Oh yeah, well, they're tied to each other innately. International capitalism is led. International capitalism is this whole like body, right? Its head and its mind and its brain. That's the United States, and its appendages are like Israel and these European countries and their puppets in all these places. It's appendages that are just parasites on the world. But the head is the USA. Once you knock off the head, the entire body will fucking collapse.
Well, Israel, Israelis in general, they're not. It's like they're not very smart because they don't realize the fate of their country depends on America. And if America
Yeah,
goes down the shitter, so do they.
yeah.
Because all these other countries, they're not going to support Israel because they'll have their own shit they'll be dealing with. Israel will be the last people on their list. Besides, Israel's not even liked by most of the European powers.
No, they're not. They're tolerated with because it's the United States.
It just
Um,
they're bullies, just like the United States. They act like they could boss everybody around. I mean, there's stupid thing about one of the leaders basically claiming it's terrorism because they won't sell an ice cream in Israel.
oh, oh yeah, Ben and Jerry's not selling ice cream. You know, I don't. A lot of that, the capitalist companies doing that is performative, but still, like fucking solidarity to anti-Zionism like that. Like for big companies like that to go out of their way to be anti-Zionist is, that's dangerous, especially in the USA. So I mean, hats off to a capitalist doing a good thing for once.
Speaking of which, if capitalism was really for the free market, why aren't we allowed to boycott Israel?
Oh yeah, you're considered a terrorist if you're a part of the boycott Israel thing or some shit like that. It's like, oh my, you're an anti-Semite. You're an
Or
anti-Semite if you're an anti-Zionist. I counter with the claim that Zionism is anti-Semitism. It's anti-Jewish. It's anti-Muslim. It's anti-human. Fuck Zionism.
one of my workers I talked to, who's a Jew, she wants to, if she wants to go back to Russia if things go to shit. She feels uncomfortable with
She should go
Zionism.
back to the Jewish Autonomous Oblast.
Well, she's from Russia.
Yeah, there's a Jewish Autonomous Oblast in Russia.
I don't care what anybody says. I admire the Russian people, and
Me
because
too.
they've been through some of the worst shit, yet they've never let the people
They went through the
bully
Yeltsin
them
years.
around.
They went through the Yeltsin years. Whew.
I mean,
Ugh.
I have nothing but respect. And you know what? Say what you will about Putin. There's a reason why people He's one of the most popular leaders in Russian history. I
You
mean,
sound like me describing Putin. That's
I mean,
exactly how I started off.
I
Say
mean,
what you want about Putin, but there's a reason why he's so popular.
Look at Putin. Look at how he comes off. Look at his demeanor. Look at how he speaks. He isn't
He's a
some
strong figure.
he isn't some weak ass politician that looks like he's fucking on his deathbed. He looks strong. While every president we've had since, I'd argue, since fucking Reagan, looks like they're about to fucking keel over and die.
Yeah, like the evil that they do takes a toll on their bodies. But Putin, the real reason why people love Putin is think about the time of this. This is after the USSR when suicides almost tripled. Homelessness was rampant. Nobody had jobs. People were starving to death in the streets during the Yeltsin years, the neoliberal shock doctrine Yeltsin years. And then Putin came in, nationalized key industries, brought the fucking oligarchs under his purview, and brought the state under control, brought stability, brought peace, lowered crime, stopped the wars over in Chechnya, in Dagestan, stopped those wars. And people saw, holy fuck, this guy's finally coming in and saving this destruction that was left to us by Gorbachev and Yeltsin in the West. And he came in and picked up the pieces and gave us something. That's why people like him. He's not a socialist or anything. People like him because he saved Russia from that fucking hell, hell that was the 90s.
Yeah, but here's another thing. I don't think a lot of Americans will understand. Russian leaders like Putin, they're most. Let's be honest. However we feel about the people after Stalin, most of them love their country. Most of these leaders do.
Yeah, it's true. They do.
When was the last time you could say we've had a Western leader that loves their country?
None. I mean, they pay lip service to it, but what they really love is maintaining their power and maintaining the parasitic relationship that they have with us.
And not to mention, name the last president that Americans love, not worship, love. Name one, because I can't think of one. Except FDR, I cannot, and JFK, I cannot name that many.
Yeah, I mean, and JFK was a piece of shit.
Yeah, FDR, he was.
FDR less so, but still pretty shitty. But the thing about it is that the reason these people were popular was for a very clear reason. They did have a concern what was happening for, working class Americans. They had concerns. Well, dang, you care about us? If they show the care through their actions, then the people will support you. Like, first and foremost, to gain support of the masses, you have to give them what they need, what they're calling for. Why do you think the Bolsheviks became popular? It wasn't because they were the most dialectic or anything like that. It's because they said peace, land, and bread. The people wanted peace, they wanted food, and the peasants wanted land. Why did Mao get hundreds of millions of peasants to back him and not the KMT? He said, we'll give you land. We'll give you land reform. That's why. None of these things are inherently Marxist. Interesting note to make.
Actually, that's a good point, Maxwell Glover, but how many people actually love Reagan today? I think worshiping somebody is not the same as love. Having an actual worship. Because
I think I had I know what you mean, because one of the only, I know some people cry when celebrities die. I've never understood that. But when Fidel died in 2016, I was at work in China and I was on break and I just started breaking down crying. That's someone that meant a lot to me, inspired me and did a lot for the world. And it was depressing and sad when he died. But I can never think that way about any American politician. There's no one I feel emotionally attached to like that.
Well, I think the thing that a lot that Americans don't understand is these leaders, a lot of them look at them as father figures.
Yeah, yeah,
And think about it. Stalin was essentially a father figure to a lot of these citizens because a lot of them were children when Stalin got into power.
yeah.
And the death of Stalin was like the death of their father or grandfather.
Well, yeah, and the same with Mao. I've seen his body, by the way, which is pretty wild. Anyway, um, you know what they call him? The kids in China, like little kids, not
What?
ones who went through history class. They call him Mao, yeah, Grandpa Mao. That's what they call him. I say, 你知道毛泽东同志? They're like Mao Zedong. They don't know who the hell that is, and I say, oh, Mao, yeah. Oh, what's it on Mao, yeah? They don't know him as Mao Zedong or Mao Suchi. They don't know him as Chairman Mao. They know him as Grandpa Mao, and that's how he's seen. He's seen as grandfatherly figure to the country.
And I'm not. It's just you don't see that for American presidents because what's on. I know a lot of people accuse Stalin and Mao and Lenin of having a cult of personality, but you could
No.
easily put they do, but we can't say they don't. But look at of the founding fathers and certain U.S. presidents and Margaret Thatcher.
Oh yeah. Have you seen that? Have you seen that statue of George Washington where he looks like a Roman god?
Yes. I mean, I
Yeah.
posted it on my community tab and I
I think
angered
I think that's
right
where
wing watch.
I think that's where I freaking saw it. Yeah, it's like, are you kidding? Like, y'all build statues too. They build statues. So what? Statues
At,
are cool.
at
Y'all
least
carved the presidential heads into a sacred mountain of indigenous people. And it's fucking and there's a secret vault in the back that they were gonna like store all the documents in, and now you can just go and look back up in there. It's like, and it's like this cultist. It looked like the tomb of knowledge. It was like this esoteric bullshit. It's like the most fucking goofy culty thing I've ever seen in my life.
it's like it's like an alien civilization looks at the Mount Rushmore. It's like, wow, these people have a long way to go. We're
Yeah,
gonna leave now.
yeah. And statues and shit are awesome, and building monuments and stuff are cool, but okay, so they have unifying figures from their history that they love. Like, but what people misunderstand so deeply about the DPRK is like, look, they're so silly. They think he's the eternal president, even though he's dead. No, actually, what that means is that they've gotten rid of the position of president and disseminated the powers to several people. And it's their part of the withering of the state that's been happening in the DPRK since its foundation. Every generation of leaders divides their powers amongst more and more people and more grassroots in the DPRK. That's why you have these things like the eternal president, because they're what they're saying is there is no more need for a president. We have moved beyond the need for a president. He is our unifying figure of the past. He's the last president, so he's the forever president. This is what people don't understand. Like their society is literally, their state is withering before our eyes, which is amazing to do while imperialism still exists. Like, that is a fascinating thing, which is so interesting and compelling about the what's happening in the DPRK, because it's so special and unique to any other condition, because they're doing what no other institution has done since establishing socialism, and it's the state withering. It's
I
amazing.
I just see it as a form of Western chauvinism. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
it it's like, oh, it's okay for the West to honor its leaders, but it's not okay for the East to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's totally chauvinistic, you know, mystifying Orientalism, right? Mystifying the East, saying, look how mysterious the DPRK is with their, why do they do that? They'll tell you exactly what they're all about. You just got to go ask them, you fucking weirdos.
It's like
Seriously.
I know I'm gonna piss off some weebs saying this. I don't respect Japan at all,
Neither do I.
honestly. Kids,
It's a disgusting.
Don't get me wrong. I am a fan of Japanese animation and and manga, but that doesn't mean I respect Japan.
I separate. I mean, I respect the style of artistry, culture, beautiful things that have come out of Japan. But Japan as a society is a very sick society.
It is sick. I mean, Japan is exactly what America is becoming. I mean, look at Japan. There's so much alienation in terms of, you know, people barely interact with each other. They focus so much on work. It's like all
Yeah,
they do is work, work, work. That's essentially what they do, and that's exactly what America is becoming. It's we work more than even Japan does at this point, and not to
yeah,
mention the way Japan, treats their women is disgusting,
absolutely disgusting.
and their
And
denial of the war crimes they committed in World War II and before World War II is also disgusting. There's a reason why Japan is skipped when the history of fascism is ever talked about. Why we Because Japan has committed crimes that are comparable to the Nazis.
well, of course, the rape of Nanjing is something that if you ever if you go to China, they don't care if you have a Japanese flag. Cool, it's your flag. We don't care. The Rising Sun flag, that's a different story. Um, you can be Japanese. They actually think Japanese people are pretty neat. They think that their animation and stuff is cool too, and their music. They like their J-pop and stuff and J-rock. They really love Japanese rock. But what they'll say to you in China is, we don't hate Japanese people. We hate the Japanese government.
I don't hate Japanese people either. I mean, there's certain aspects of Japanese culture I admire.
No,
There's
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of great things, but just like how the American culture has a cultural hegemony that's reactionary and disgusting, controlled by the ruling class, the same is in Japan, as you're saying, like this disgusting culture that alienates the majority of working class Japanese people. And, they don't have healthy outlets for social interaction. They don't have healthy outlets for relieving stress. And what they're provided with is a lot of disgusting things in its place. And
well, it all. If you want to know, I know you want to know why so many Japanese animation, why a lot of it takes place, in a school setting, why they're mostly teenagers, is because the majority of the Japanese workforce, they are nostalgia for a time where they didn't have to worry about doing the stuff that they're doing
that
now.
makes a lot of sense. I never thought of that,
Because
but
a
it
lot
makes
of it's a lot of thing that people in the West complain about. It's like, why is there so many Japanese animation or video games with people in high school? Well, the culture is nostalgic for a time that was simpler, where they can hang out
right.
with friends and loved ones without worrying about all the responsibilities that's thrust upon them.
Yeah, and you notice in a lot of those shows, the parent figures are always overworked and stuff like that. One of my favorite pieces of media of all time, let alone anime, but pieces of media of all time is Neon Genesis Evangelion. I'm sure
It's
you like
Evangelion, I think.
Evangelion. I don't know. Um, it's one of my favorite pieces of media of all time, and you can really see that. Like it's a story about alienation. It's a story about growing up with parents who have no feeling for you because they're constantly focused on their work. It's a story about alienation and being expected to do so much when you don't even understand who you are yet. You don't understand your own sexuality, let alone your own that's a part in the manga really, but let alone your own your own place in the world, you know? And they're expecting so much out of this person in such a short amount of time. I think that that's really, it seems very reflective, like of Japan in like a hyper focused state, like in a very dystopian way. But I don't
It's
know.
one of the yeah, but it's one of the most misunderstood anime by its community because a lot of Ava fans don't understand Ava.
Yeah,
Because you know the creator sees it in a different way than they do, and I don't know if
absolutely.
anybody. I've never seen the new movies. In fact, I never seen anything past the TV series because
I watched
Evangelion's not my cup of
I
tea.
watched the TV series and the end of Evangelion, of course. Did you watch that, right? The end of Evangelion?
Ava is not my thing. I didn't like it when I watched it.
Okay.
Then again,
Okay.
it was many years ago, so I might have to revisit it from the context of a communist today because I was still a high school student when I watched it.
Yeah, I think it's it's a story about playing God.
Well,
In that sense.
well, one of my favorite animes is the original Gundam shows that actually, you know, the originals, not the newer ones, but the
I'm not
originals.
gonna. This is so crazy. This is like Bader Meinhof effect right here.
It's
I
just
They just put them all on Netflix, the original three, and also Char's Rebellion. And
I know a lot of people are gonna probably freak out. Char did nothing wrong. Nobody's changing my mind.
I am so empathetic towards Char, so I get it. Like, I mean, he was just an agent of chaos.
I'm sorry, Char did nothing wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, maybe he did. Maybe one thing he did wrong. Maybe that thing with Quest was a little weird, but other than that, I don't think he did anything wrong.
He took down the Sabis. Fuck them. Um,
Yeah. You know what's actually funny? I used to sympathize with Xeon until I watched Gundam the Origin. Gundam the
ah,
Origin just ruined it for me, and I love it. It's like, why did I root for these fascists as a this is why you ruined they have cool looking mecha and suits.
I don't root for either of them, you know. It's sort of like for me, like I sort of compare it to Fallout New Vegas. Like, yeah, the NCR may be the lesser evil than Kaiser's Legion, but neither of them are really a great choice.
Well,
Um,
I don't know. The thing is Xeon I think might be the anime equivalent of a Nazgul faction because there are aspects of both fascism and communism in this Principality of Xeon.
oh, the Nazgul vortex.
I couldn't help it.
Char's like an anarcho Nazgul.
I don't know if I would consider Char a Nazgul, honestly. I just because fascists always take someone's ideas and pervert them. We don't know what Zeon Daikun what his ideas actually were because he dies in the opening scene of Gundam the Origin, so we don't know what his ideas actually were.
Yeah. And I think that it was great when they called it Neo Zeon because that's sort of like reflecting of like this isn't actually, really connected to the ideas of the OG like you think it is.
Well,
So,
well, only reason I rooted for Char and Char's counterattack because I hated what the AU became. Actually,
yeah,
because they became essentially the Titans with a human face.
yeah, yeah.
But still, regarding Japanese animation, it's the original creator of Yoshibi Tekamo did actually talk about how concerned he is with the current state of anime and how it portrays war. Because
Oh,
the ways war has been portrayed in anime in the past 10 years is very disturbing.
yeah. I think, like if we look at good depictions of war in anime, like, or specifically the manga, especially of Full Metal Alchemist, how they really focused on how fucked up that war in Ishvan. And also, like, I love Akira. It's certainly an anti-capitalist movie. I mean, it makes it very clear that it's an anti-capitalist movie, especially the point when one of the one of the military officers says, "We will no longer do the bidding of these Catholic," and shit like that. But I think that like there's radical sentiment within anime that's very interesting that really critiques Japanese society, which I think is interesting. I don't know enough about like deeper Japanese issues and problems, just like the surface of things. And it's kind of like, and there's another one I saw like Welcome to the NHK about these people who are those shut-ins, right? And people who are like alienated from society and stuff, and people who really critique this sort of stuff and analyze it. And but like you said, there's a lot of people, a lot of ways that it's like war is treated almost like a game in a lot of these things, and a fun thing.
One of the most popular like examples of fascism in anime is Attack on Titan and Naruto. Now, I can't talk about Attack on Titan much because I haven't watched it or read the
Well, so
manga.
I'll argue that the first half of it seems like that very much, and that the second half of it ends as literally as an attack on the ideology of the first half, like literally calling it out for what it is, fascism. So anyone who's finished it,
I'd have to read
I
it.
understand it because the anime had such a long time in between it. The first like 2 seasons that came out, all you can get from it is fascism. But after that, like when the truth is revealed about everything, it's really a critique about it, about the entire system and of what was established. Like really, what's going on in the first 2 seasons is like a micro. It's like having the perspective of someone who's never left a 10-foot room. And then once you get out of the 10-foot room, you realize, oh, fuck, we're fascists. So it's interesting. But Naruto, yes, I would argue that very much is a fascist anime.
I don't think Naruto started off as fascist, though. I don't think it did.
Could you sort of explain that?
I think Kishimoto was an idiot. I don't think he was aware he was writing a fascist propaganda.
Yeah, he was just writing a shonen.
I personally think when Naruto start becoming fascist is when they are justifying the genocide against the Uchiha clan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like when it was revealed what really happened, and basically making these. That's just my opinion when I started seeing it as fascist, because I killed when Itachi was trying to show Sasuke what really happened. It's like, what the fuck? So you're justifying genocide, Kishi? What the fuck? Sasuke was totally right to want to destroy the village. Why?
Yeah, I totally agree that he did nothing.
And not to mention Pain, like every single villain, at least at the Pain arc, who opposed Konoha are somehow the bad guys, even though Konoha was the source of many of the world's problems.
Yep. That's like, hilarious, yeah.
And Naruto in general, it's just, I don't think it became fascist until the Pain arc. Ironically, the last arc most fans gave a shit about.
Interesting. Yeah. I think that, the media of Japan reflects a lot of its culture. I actually took a Japanese media class, interestingly enough, in university, because my major was political and human geography, and so we were doing media of Japan. That's cultural geography, a part of the whole thing, and we were looking at 1930s films and analyzing their fascist nature in the class. I love that professor.
Well, the thing is, I don't think all fascist propaganda, I don't think the authors are aware that it's fascist.
Well, the ones we were looking at were people who were a deep part of building fascism in Japan. So
I don't think Kishimoto is aware that it was fascist. I think he's just a moron.
Yeah, I think he's one of the people who thinks, politics, LDP is okay, right? I don't know.
It's like, let's just compare this to One Piece, which has consistently been anti-fascist from its very inception.
I've never watched it or read it because it's so daunting and long.
Well, One Piece is probably a story that's more anarchistic in its themes.
Cool.
but But most of the villains are fascists. Almost all of them are fascists, no exception.
Lit. That they
I don't.
fight.
Okay, I don't want to say you should read it because I don't because it's long, and I've started reading One Piece in 2007 before it became what it was now. So I can understand why you wouldn't. But I'm just saying that that's an example I think of a manga that I think the author does know what he's talking about, unlike Naruto, because he sees some cool stuff and then he just fucking writes fascist fan fiction.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. These people. I think you're right. A lot of people just subconsciously are writing things.
well, also,
Yeah.
I think one of the Gundam series is ironically fascist propaganda.
Which one?
Gundam Sea Destiny, which I is one of it was
Ah,
my most hated Gundam series of all time. Okay, here the reason I say it's fascist because of because why is it an island nation that's not Japan, lol, and Zaf are basically fascist superpowers competing for the control of the Earth's sphere, and and this because you know how America how it basically talks about what it was human rights violations. Well, replace America with Kira Jesus Yamato saying I don't want everybody to kill each other anymore. Shoots everybody with a fucking mobile suit and enforcing their will onto everybody else, and essentially takes over Zaf with a coup d'état. So they killed the legitimate leader of the plants just so they can insert another leader into power.
uh,
That's not inherently fascist, but considering that the main characters are genetically engineered people,
yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say that's Gundam Seed. So.
I don't consider the first seed pro-fascist because but Destiny, holy fucking shit, that series is so bad.
My first exposure to Gundam was Gundam Wing on on Toonami as a kid.
I can't comment on Gundam Wing from a Marxist perspective today. The last time I saw it was like decades ago.
When I was a
Uh,
kid was the last time I saw
I'm a
it.
UC fan to the bone.
Oh, I love UC. Universal Century is amazing. Um, What'd you think about that one they put up on Netflix?
Halfway Splash. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
I I
it's
know how it ends, but I'm not going to spoil it.
yeah. Don't spoil it. It's pretty. It's not an action film. Let's just say that it's not an action film, really. It's pretty interesting to say the least. I think you'll find it compelling. I don't want to spoil it,
The
um,
if you
because
want
it's
to
a part of the UC, and
if you
it's right after Char's Rebellion.
if you want
So
to know actually the origins of Halfway Splash, it was actually originally a novel that was released in the 1980s.
yeah, it was almost like a fan fiction thing that was um that was authorized,
Where
wasn't
the
it?
original author, the original creator Yoshi Tekamo, wrote a novelization of Char's counterattack and Halfway Splash. The novels, the movies, but the novels were a sequel to the novelization, which the novelization of Char's counterattack called Bakura's Children has differences that aren't in the movie. Example, Amuro is actually married to Bakura, his girlfriend in Zeta Gundam in the novel,
Oh.
and Hathaway kills Quest instead of that one girlfriend that Amuro had. I don't even remember her name.
Amuro's girlfriends.
Yeah, they rejected it because they at the time Sunrise rejected the idea of Amuro being married, which I actually think Bakura's Children actually would have was had a better characterization for Amuro because Amuro had something to fight for besides, oh, we're fighting over some dead 14-year-old girl who's been dead for like 13 years. Yeah, let's fight over
Yeah.
this shit.
I always found that as pretty ridiculous.
Well, I like Char's counterattack, but I think that's ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
Char, I can understand because he actually knew her for an extended period of time, but Amuro, no.
He like saw her once and got a boner. Well, that's exactly what happened. He was like, "Oh," when he saw her, and he freaked out when Char showed up, and he's like, "Yo, what up, homie?" It's like I like his interaction with her was like less than 2 minutes. It was weird.
Yeah, if there's one thing I don't like about the UC is the romances suck.
Very 80s.
There, I think the only good romance in the UC was Eighth the Mess Team.
Yeah.
Because at least it's an actual relationship. Well, oh, we just met each other once. Oh, I'm horny. Oh yeah, yay! Or 0083. Oh, I don't want you to kill my previous boyfriend. It's like, wait, what?
Like y'all are fighting in fucking world destroying mobile suits, and you're fighting over girlfriends.
Yeah, our boyfriends. What? As for Berserk, Specky TV. Oh, I'm reading Berserk currently, and I'm loving it.
I love Berserk. I've been reading I've been, I every day I send an email telling the author to release another chapter faster. Um, it doesn't happen.
Let's give him credit. He released more than George R.R. Martin has in 10
Yeah,
years.
that's a fact. And but yes, I love Berserk so much. I love it so much. It's so fucking amazing. It's so good. Holy fuck, it's so good. It's not. Oh god, it's hard to describe how fucking it is.
I'm currently in the Golden Age arc, or I'm
Okay.
at Berserk, so I can't really talk about it that much. The only thing I'd say is I love the fucking artwork for Berserk. It's some of the best art I've ever seen in manga.
It's you can almost see it moving. Like the way that they animate motion, or that he draws motion and fighting, you can picture it going on in your head. It's very cool.
I don't know. The only other author I can think of that did it was the artist who drew Fist of the North Star, which was his main inspiration. Which Fist of the North Star Volume 1 just got released recently.
Oh, interesting.
At least the manga, which I admit it makes the animes kind of embarrassing. As much as I love the anime of Fist of the North Star, the early season parts of the show are, oh god,
You know how it is.
The
But
memes.
it's been great. It's been
Come
great
from that
talking with
section.
you. It's been great talking with you. It's time
Yeah.
but it's time for me to get to evening prayers and everything. So
I understand. Anyway, it was nice having you on, Connor.
yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
Solidarity.
Solidarity. All right. Well, unfortunately, I'm gonna be ending this here because it's been 3 damn hours, and I think this has been a good stream. Anyway, peace out, everyone. May the force be with you, and as always, stay safe. And whatever you do, do not be an asshole and don't be a sectarian piece of shit. Thank you.